I let slip away, they were simpler times. Mama told me before you leave, if there's only one thing you remember from me, child, when you're out on your own, a million miles from home, feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, child, don't forget who you are, don't lose your head or your heart. I'll bet my life on your stars, you'll be dancing, dancing on the moon. I'll bet my life you'll be dancing on the moon. I'll bet my life you'll be dancing on the moon. I'll bet my life you'll be dancing on the moon. Dancing on the moon. Dancing on the moon. Maybe my compass was wrong, and I'm still on my way closer each day to where I belong. I'm still rolling the dice, praying sometimes it don't last that long. I'm losing my faith, I'm walking away from what you knew all along. Mama told me before you leave, if there's only one thing you remember from me, child, when you're out on your own, a million miles from home, feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, child, don't forget who you are, don't lose your head or your heart. I'll bet my life on your stars, you'll be dancing, dancing on the moon. I'll bet my life you'll be dancing on the moon. I'll bet my life you'll be dancing on the moon. I'll bet my life you'll be dancing on the moon. Dancing on the moon. Child, when you're out on your own, a million miles from home, feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders. Child, don't forget who you are, don't lose your head or your heart. I'll bet my life on your stars, you'll be dancing, dancing on the moon.
All right, happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope you're doing well. All right, I think we got that going. Just filling up my cup of coffee here. Hope you guys brought yours. Again, it's a 4-credit night class, so we are in for lots of fun. I'm hoping to stop with enough time for you guys to get a chance to try some of the stuff we're talking about. And then if we want to hop on Discord or some sort of Zoom call or something, you can screen share and I can help you out if you're running into any issues. Because that's what we usually do when we meet in person. But it's a little weird because there's no people around. So, all right. We made it through week 1, Introduction to C++, and expressions and interactivity, right, using C in, C out, or possibly getLine. Again, I had poorly named the examples here. So I've got my GitHub repository. Remember, your 2 favorite buttons here, links, should be in repository, view on GitHub, and repository, show and explorer. So I'm going to view on GitHub. It's named Hello World. It's a bunch more than Hello World because we just kept going with that example. I didn't make anything new. I just clicked into the folders and I get to see all the files. I'm looking for my source.cpp, my C++ file here. And yeah, getLine. Okay, I was right. I was trying to remember that off the top of my head, and I get confused easy. Oh, just again, I'm a giant nerd, so you'll get used to it. Again, I'm not making money off of this Twitch thing. If I do get any ad revenue or other stuff, it's all going to get donated to the scholarship fund at U of M Dearborn. So thanks for supporting the students there. But this mug is from GM Hikaru Nakamura. It's a GG Yo mug. He's the number 1, 2, or 3 chess player in America. One of the best in the world when it comes to blitz, and definitely top 20 or 30 or so in classical chess. And he streams on Twitch because he's just a cool guy too. And all the cool guys stream on Twitch, right? So he's got his cool mug. And then if you are interested in chess, you can throw out an exclam chess in the Twitch chat there. And it's just a link to my chess username. You can go find me there, and we can play games of chess at some point if you guys have enough free time. But that's kind of a fun way to connect over a non-work or school thing. So it's kind of fun. We can hang out and do that sometime. Zooming in a bit. Yes, I'm sorry. The website is not zoomed at all. Yeah, so let's enhance, 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 enhance. How's that? So we'll talk over this real fast, and then we'll go back and jump into the new stuff. So a couple of things we took care of last week. Starting new projects in Visual Studio. Again, if you're not using Windows, or even if you are using Windows and you prefer something else, that's okay. I definitely strongly prefer Visual Studio. It's got some great tools, and later on, some of the built-in testing framework stuff is going to be really helpful for us. But I'm open to anything that runs C++. So for the first project that you guys had, it is due by 11:59 p.m. tonight. Again, if you can't make it exactly by then, this one is okay to slide a little because there's really no solution. Like we did Hello World last week. It's just, can you do it and get all the files in github.com for me so that I can see them in your repository? It sort of sets the stage for us to do all the work moving forward. Pretty much from here on out, when a project is due, I'm going to go over the solution first thing in class when it's due. So we're going to talk about project 1 tonight. It'll be due in 2 weeks on 9/23, the start of class, and I'll be going over a solution to it. And as soon as I've gone over a solution, I'm not going to take yours, right? At that point, you probably would just copy. I don't know. So I can't take those late typically. So with Project Zero, we got a little bit of wiggle room because it's just Hello World. So let's check out what we worked on last week. Right, some of the stuff from chapter 2 and 3. Again, if you're brand new to programming, definitely read chapter 1. It's worth your while. Just a little bit of basics of computers and stuff. Nothing we'll particularly need for this class, but it just sets a good stage for the actual programming piece later. So we talked a little bit about constants. This idea of it being a constant value means I'm going to set it, so declare and assign at the same time. You have to when they're constant, and then C++ won't let you change it. What we do to indicate that it's a constant is we put its name in all uppercase, and because we can't do the camel casing, we use underscores to separate the words. So this is the pi approximate value here in our case. Right, and again, we just had a couple digits here of pi. We could go farther if we needed to, but this is just our approximate here. Looked at a couple of different variable types. So booleans are very useful for what we're going to be talking about this week. We'll use lots of Boolean values or Boolean expressions, at least. Strings for strings of characters or text is what we're going to use. We can cin directly, but remember when we use cin, we don't get spaces. So as soon as C++ sees a space, we're going to lose that here. So if I typed in Eric Chernesky, I wouldn't get Eric Chernesky. All we get is Eric. We did numbers, we did arithmetic with the combined assignment operator. You'll see this a lot. I don't care which one you use. Really doesn't make any difference at all. This is just a shortcut for people because we're too lazy to type the same thing twice. Right, just a shortcut here. The auto typing, no, this is C++ tonight. Yeah, hopefully that's in the title, right? Object-oriented programming, C++. Yeah, I think I did that right. Python's a different class that I teach. Auto is handy, but as beginners, it's almost a little tricky when you're using it. There's nothing wrong with it for sure, but I might suggest you want to be more specific and say, yes, I really want an integer, or I really want a double, or I really want some particular type. instead of relying on auto, just so that you're sure exactly what you're getting. So just there's nothing wrong with it. Just be careful if you're going to use auto. This line here, again, people love them or hate them. It's the same thing as this down below here. So it's just, we'll call this a ternary expression. It has three parts. It has the expression, right, that we're checking. This will be a true or false expression. And if it's true, we get the question mark, we get this value. So this value will be assigned to another value. If it's false, we get this side. Again, I'm not quite fond of them because I can never remember if it's true and false or false and true, and it's just not clear. So this if-else branch is definitely much clearer. Again, we're going to talk more about this chapter. It's kind of weird we threw that one in early, but I think I was falling off the textbook for that. Maybe. So that was like a whole week ago, right? That's like a month in quarantine time. Modulus, right? Modulus is the remainder, the integer remainder result of doing division. Right, so think way back to 3rd grade math class when we had remainders, right? It's the remainder is modulus. This can be super helpful depending on what kind of arithmetic you need to do. Can be really useful. Integer division, right? If we take one integer divided by another integer, we are guaranteed an integer result. Right? So the problem with that is if it's not a whole number, you lose the decimal places. Totally gone. Right? So if that's not what we wanted to do, we need to force one of the numbers to be a double before we do our division. And then using some more cin. So cin can get strings, right? We did strings for input before using cin. You can also get numeric values. And it's smart enough to say, hey, if you declare it as a double, it's going to input it as a double. If you declare something as an integer, it will input it as an integer. It'll get a little confused if you try and give it decimal places at that point. But so just be careful with what you're doing here. Our parentheses example, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Remember, multiplication and division and addition and subtraction have the same order of precedence, so they go left to right. So just because we say multiplication doesn't mean we do 2 times 3. Right? We go left to right. We do 7 divided by 2. Integer division. These are integers. Right? So I'm going to get 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Right? Squared, there's the power function. You can square values. Cool. The size of is kind of cool. It tells you how many bytes of internal storage this thing takes, which is just a nice thing to know. You got to be careful in C++ that you don't go over your max values. Again, there's things we can do to check. We're just not really quite there yet for this. But if your integer gets bigger than you can store, you get some weird results. I think we're getting like some negative values in here. And then getLine was really helpful because it got the entire line, including spaces, up until someone hit enter. And this was great. The only thing we had to worry about was if we mix and match getLine and cin, it can get confused very easily. I thought we had this in here somewhere. We had the cin again, but I'm not remembering right now. So yeah, we can get the name, getLine. Yeah. Cool. Oh, so was it the first line was getting because we had done a cin on the numeric value? I think that's what it was. And then a couple fun things, right? You can figure out how many letters are in a string with the length function. And if we're getting random values with srand, or with rand, right? You want to use seed random, srand, given this time of 0 thing, so that every time we run it, we'll get a new seed value. Because we don't actually get really random values. We get pseudo-random values based on whatever the seed is. And if we don't give it a seed, every time we run it, we call random, we'll get the exact same number every time. Or the same sequence of numbers every time. And then with random, remember, we get really big numbers. So what we want to do is we want to mod the number, use modulus, by what we want our max to be. So if I wanted numbers 1 to 100, and I take some random number mod 100, I'll get 0 to 99 as the remainder. Then I'll add 1, and I'll get 1 to 100 with that operation. right, so that's stuff we did last week. A real quick review. Again, you can go check out the link. You should be able to watch the VOD in Twitch. It stays for about 45 days or so. So I also did export it to YouTube for you guys. It's unlisted just because it's got all my contact info in it. I didn't want that super public on YouTube. I guess it's public on Twitch, but I feel like less people go there. We're more of a niche market when it comes to Twitch. So in week 1, you should have a link here for the course intro and C++ introduction, expressions, interactivity, and I ran out of characters. So that'll just link you out to the YouTube video if that's how you want to go watch the previous video. The Project Zero was out here as well. I think a bunch of you were getting it in. I haven't got a chance to grade it if you turned it in today. Other than that, I was trying to keep up because I get behind really fast, and I'm going to try not to. I'm going to be better about it. And then don't forget, you also have quizzes on Chapter 2 and 3. Again, they're open book, open note, open internet. I think I can even, can I preview the quiz? How do I do that here? If I go to, I don't remember. There's a way to do it. Let me pop it over to another window real quick, just in case it opens the wrong thing. Sometimes Desire to Learn is dumb. Preview. Start. Just make sure I get the right view here. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so let me bring this down to this window. All right, so I'm fond of these true-false questions, but the trick is, if the answer is false, you have to correct the statement to make it true. So it's more like a short answer question, but sometimes they're easy if they're true. So read the question, answer it in the box. Read the question, answer in the box. There's no auto-grading because the auto-grader in Desire to Learn is terrible if I don't use multiple choice, and I just hate multiple choice questions. I try and never use them if I can help it. We'll see what the plan is when we get to the midterm. Not certain yet, because I need some sort of large bank of questions that you guys get random values, because not that you'd work together, but if you all get your own random set of questions, you just won't have that temptation to work together, and we'll all be happy. All right. And some of these are silly, like again, just for fun. You won't often get freebies like this, but getting 10 questions out of Chapter 2 is a little bit annoying, but I wanted to have an even 10 because it makes my OCD-ness happy. Right, so we can go back to D2L. Probably the back page works. Maybe. Come on, take me back. Nope, it's confused. I broke it, folks. Broke Desire to Learn. Maybe I should call their help desk. All right, here we go. We can get back. Oh, there. Okay, so 3 of you have new ones I have to grade. And most of you took the quizzes. Or no. That's half of you guys took the quizzes. Right? Because there was 2 of them. So that's the total altogether. So do take some time to get those done tonight. Even do them on break if you so care to. Not due till 11:59 p.m. So I'll do the same for chapters 4 and 5 that we're going to cover tonight. I'll write quizzes after I've talked about it tonight. Again, there's no guarantee that I'll have given you the answer to the question during the lecture time. Again, I'm trying to pull out the highlights, the most important stuff, and give you some examples to play with and chew on when I lecture. But the questions are going to come from the textbook and the slides, right? Because the slides come from the textbook. So that's your incentive to do the reading and keep up and don't get behind to do all the quizzes here. Oh, the other note, you guys all get these announcements from D2L, right? Like they email to you or you get some sort of notice? Anybody? Does it look familiar at all? I actually don't know what it looks like as a student. I'm sorry. Okay, you got it. Good. So just a reminder about the Project Zero from a while ago. And then I found out we do have free tutoring through our Academic Support Center, which is fantastic. So here's the link to their schedule, or there's the main page for reference. There's 1 tutor for CIS. And I've been told, I can't verify this because I'm new, but the more that we utilize tutoring resources, the more likely it is they'll approve them for next time. And I think that makes sense, right? It's a free service the ASC provides, but if our 1 tutor, because we only get 1 for like all of CIS here, she's pretty smart. If she doesn't have enough time to tutor everyone, maybe then we'll encourage the ASC to get another tutor for us. So do reach out. That's available to you. Again, I'm open to answer your questions, but she's really good. She can sit down and go over particular topics with you, do more examples, that sort of thing. So that's out there and available to you as well to take advantage of. Again, I don't know how well the timing works for you guys, but maybe you can make something work. All right, I think that's all we have before we want to jump into some new stuff. So again, we got chapters 4 and 5 tonight. We're going through some of this early stuff fast. If it feels crazy, that's okay. Reach out and let me know what's not clear, what doesn't feel good. Just the more we practice it, the more it's going to feel more comfortable, right? And we'll get a little bit better at it. So again, I'm going to start Visual Studio, and I can start up a new project. I think everyone got this working. I didn't get a lot of questions about installing Visual Studio like I do sometimes. So we're going to do New Project. New project. There we go. And we want the C++ type because you might have installed multiple other workloads and whatnot. That's fine. We want a C++ empty project. And it's going to ask, where do we want to put it? So for me, I'm going to put it in our class repository because all my code's going to go on GitHub for you guys to look at later. You are going to put it in your GitHub repository. It usually puts it in your Documents GitHub folder by default. You could have put it anywhere you want it. And if you're not sure, go to GitHub, go to your repository, and say Show in Explorer. And you can find the path right here in this little breadcrumb trail. Just click in there, it'll highlight it, and you're going to do Control-C for copy, or right-click copy if you prefer that. I prefer to keep my hands on the keyboard, and I use all sorts of keyboard shortcuts if I can help it. Right? Good developers are lazy, efficiently lazy, right? All right, so I'm going to grab that path. I'm going to make sure, yep, it looks good here. I could just paste it in, Control-V for paste. And then we're going to call this Chapter 4 Examples. And I'll create my project. Now, if we drop it right in that GitHub repository folder, my GitHub client here is going to say, oh, hey, there's a bunch of new stuff showing up in just a second. That's the easy way. Several of you had tried to do direct uploads to github.com, which works, but it's a whole lot more work for you. And trying to keep files in sync, and if you have to make changes and whatnot, it's just going to be terrible. So definitely don't recommend that approach. Right? You want to just drop everything in the folder and then let GitHub say, hey, I found some new stuff. Again, we got a solution file, a VCX project file, filters, those are all fine. Leave those alone. We want all of them. No code files yet because we haven't added any. We've had an empty project. So I'm going to come to my Solution Explorer, right-click on Source Files. We're going to add a new item. We want a CPP file, C++ file here. Right? You can call it source, you could call it chapter 4, you could call it yada yada yada. The name of it doesn't matter. So I leave it as source since it doesn't matter. Again, we'll get to it later where stuff does matter, but for now don't worry about it. And I don't want to have to type everything, and you guys don't want to have to watch me type everything, so I'm just going to come back here. You can highlight and copy paste this sort of stuff, but it doesn't copy well from this page. What you want to do is click the raw button. And in raw, it's just text. And you can Control-A for highlight everything, Control-C for copy, Control-V for paste. And I'm going to come in and pull everything back out, except for int main, my using namespace, and IOStream. That should be enough for now. If we're not doing a whole lot with stuff with strings, don't worry about it. This is just getting this little starter code set up. Any way you guys want to do that is perfectly fine. So on GitHub here, if you want to copy your previous projects, and you can even do it in Visual Studio, but I just happen to have it open here. Control-A highlights everything. Control-C for copy. You guys can't see my hands, like I'm talking like you can. Come over here, and Control-V for paste. It'll put it all in. So I'm going to cut out the other stuff we didn't need. So this is our basic program, right? So we have the IOStream for input-output. Pretty much every program we're going to use is going to do some sort of input and output. Because if you're not outputting to the screen, you're pretty boring. And unfortunately, we're not going to get to building really pretty graphical user interfaces or anything. There's enough to cover here. We don't have time to pull in any of those libraries and play with them. You can do some really pretty UIs in C++, but we don't really have the time to cover that in this course. So we're going to use IOStream for console input and output using CIN, Cout, that sort of stuff. This namespace, again, some people frown on this, and I still don't really understand why. It just makes life easy. Most of our beginner functions are in the standard namespace. So we could use std : CIN and those sort of things, but I'd rather just use CIN because we're saying, hey, I want to use this namespace. Again, we'll get to a little bit more of this when we talk more about classes and packages and all that good stuff. But this is really all we need to get up and running. And the return 0 is just a good habit, good practice. Technically not necessary, but I'd like to see it in there. It'll just make life a little easier for us. Okay, so we've got an empty project here. If you guys want, I've got the slides available for you, again, in D2L. They're supposed to be used for people who bought the book. Hopefully you guys bought the book as well. I don't think the slides by themselves are going to be enough for you to do your reading. So definitely encourage you to go get the book. If you do !book in Twitch chat, I think I've got the info about it. We'll see. I think I added it in last week when someone was asking about what book we're using. Well, we can see if that works, if anyone wants to try it. Yeah, look at that. Starting out with C++, Early Objects by Gaddis, Walters, and Maganda. Oh, and the Java book for anyone who's curious about my Java class. I put both of those in there. You don't need the Java book for the C++ class, just FYI. So, and I think some of you might even have it, right? I know several of you mentioned you had previously taken CIS 1500, and I was asking the get to know you, or tell me about yourself. I can never remember what I call those forms. All right, so we're going to look more at decision making in Chapter 4. So most of the decision making we're going to do is when our computer has to make a choice. And to make it easy for our computer, because our computer is pretty dumb, the choice is going to be this way or this way. We can get to some more advanced and more complicated and more interesting examples, but it kind of all boils down to this way or this way, right? You're going to do this choice, or you're not going to do that choice. You're going to do the other thing. So for some pretty easy basic examples, we need to find things that are true or false for C++ to be able to determine whether or not it wants to do something or not. Right? So what we need is some sort of Boolean expression where we're checking, is this true or is this false? So we can have, say, an int for the secret number is, I don't know, let's do 42. And we'll have an int for guess. And then we're just going to ask the user, hey, we'll say guess a number. And again, I'm going to use end lines. If you don't like to use end lines, that's perfectly fine. Doesn't matter too much. It's just a preference here. And I can see and guess. Now I want to check. Either one of two things happened. Either they guessed it right or they guessed it wrong. Right? There's no in between here. You're either right or you're wrong on this. You're true or you're false. So what we're going to do in C++, we say if. And if is my keyword here. Notice it turns out, is that purple or pink? Some kind of color here. And then we use a set of parentheses. So inside the parentheses goes my expression. So if my guess is equal to, remember the single equal sign is the assignment operator. Single equals does not mean equals. Single equals means assigns. I save the number 42 to this variable over here. Right? Assign the thing on the right to the thing on the left. That's my assignment operator. So if you want to check if something equals, you use two equal signs. Equal equals. So if the guess is equal to the secret number, then we need to do something. And then with this if expression, I'm going to tell you, you should always use curly braces. You technically don't need them if you have a single line underneath. Technically. I'm going to tell you, just always use the curly braces because it never hurts. And it's just always going to make it nice and clear that, yes, just this one thing belongs. It's been several years now, but I think probably about 10 years ago, if anyone is a fan of Mac or Apple and their Macintosh computers, there was a problem with the Safari web browser in that the secure socket layer, the SSL security that we rely on when we go to secure websites, HTTPS secure websites, was broken in Safari because one of their developers didn't use curly braces in an if expression. I kid you not. And it broke Safari for all of their users. So just let that be a warning. It never hurts to have it here. Some people say, well, it's a waste of space. I don't really care, right? The code here is for people. The code is made to be readable by people. Just because the computer can understand it without it doesn't mean I can understand it without it, or that it's clear or it's clean and pretty. So just always use the curly braces, and I'll get off that soapbox. So if we guessed it, right, now we're going to tell them that they guessed it right. So we can do cout. And again, the arrows go the direction of where the information is moving. So cout, the arrows point towards the out. Cin, the arrows point towards the variable. That's how I always remember it. So we're going to cout, you guessed it. and an end line. Great. Now what if we didn't guess it right? This was the if we guessed it right case. Now you don't actually even need, there's no requirement to have the other case. You're perfectly fine to just have the if case. Nothing wrong with that at all. But often we have the branching code where if this is true, we do this thing, else we do this thing, otherwise we do this thing. And for us, that's the else keyword in C++. So we say, if this is true, run everything inside the curly braces. No, you can't do it the other direction with the arrows. So it's got to be towards, so I see what you're saying, where you would put the arrows towards cout the other way, but cout has to be the first thing on the left. And sort of like an order of operations thing. Like we start with cout, and then we're adding this to it, and then we're adding this to it. That's sort of how it evaluates. So if we did not guess it right, well, we could do something else. And you know what? This is actually kind of boring here. So I'm going to come back to my code here and grab these two little includes for the C standard library and C time. Because if I want random numbers, I need to use these things. And, oh, sorry, that's a little tiny here with that, but that's okay. I'll fix it in just a second. Back in my code. And remember, if we want real random numbers, or randomish enough to get different random numbers every run, you want to use this sran to seed random every time you run it. We'll seed it with the current clock time. That's what time is here. That's the number of milliseconds since some time in the past, which is a crazy way to measure time, but that's someone came up with it, and we've been doing it ever since. All right, so I'm actually going to do that. So I'm going to say rand, which will give me a random number, and then let's guess, like, say 1 to 100. So we'll do 100 plus 1, because random will give me a big number. Modulus will give me the remainder when I divide by 100. So that leaves 0 to 99, right? Because it could be an even multiple of 100, or it could not be. So I'll get 0 to 99 as a remainder, then I'll add 1, so I get 1 to 100. So let's tell them, guess a number 1 to 100. Okay? And then we can see if we got it right. So this way we can actually guess a random number. So if I didn't guess it right, I'm going to cout you lose. This, you can imagine, will not be a very fun game, because one guess, 1 to 100, we're going to get it right 1 out of 100 times or so, right, if we're lucky. Not a very entertaining game. But let's try it. 42, we lose. Oh, bummer. And you guys want to cheat? Check this out. So if we put a breakpoint in, so you're going to get really familiar with the debugger. Another reason I love Visual Studio, it has a great debugger. The other IDEs you might use probably have debuggers. I know Xcode does, CodeBlocks does. Someone had asked about Atom in Discord. Never used it before. I imagine it would, but again, I've never used it, so I just have no idea. So I'm going to come, I've got all my line numbers here, and then there's this like big gray space to the left of that. I'm going to drop a click in here. It's called a breakpoint, a big fat red dot. No, you don't have to be coding while I'm doing it. I'm going to be posting all of this to github.com. So like there's no need for you to have to type along. I'm just kind of giving the example. This is something you can play with, and then maybe we'll take a break in a little while and you guys can try some of it here or there, and I can pop in and out, answer some questions. Again, usually I would reserve like the last hour of class when we did this in person for you guys to try all these things. It's a little awkward given that we're totally virtual, but like if I end at 9, I can hang out on Discord and we can do screen sharing, or I did figure out how to set up my Zoom, so I've got a Zoom link if Zoom works better than Discord for you. Just a preference, doesn't really matter. I just have had bad experiences with Zoom in the past, so I opt for Discord. And again, I think a lot of people are familiar with that tool anyway, just from the community. Excuse me. So I'm going to put a breakpoint in, and now when I hit my run here, the code's going to stop. And hopefully if you've ever taken a coding class before, you've seen this. Now I see I got a big yellow arrow here, and I see the code is paused. So what debugging lets me do is stop the code from running and inspect the current state of things. So I can see over here, and I'm sorry, I can't zoom this. I don't think I can. There's no like options that I know of for zooming, except for the Windows magnifier, but that like really screwed things up last time I tried it, and it was really trippy. But I'll tell you, it says the secret number is 13, and it also says guess is negative 85 million something or other. That looks like garbage. And it is. When you declare a value, it gets a garbage value. When you declare a variable, it by default will get a garbage value. It's why, remember why we want to make sure we're assigning values before we use them, because I don't want this garbage here. We know we're going to change it, so it should be okay, but just be careful when you do variables that you make sure you're assigning them values. All right, so I know the secret number is 13, so I'm going to hit continue to just let this program keep going here. And it says, hey, guess a number 1 to 100. I'll guess 13. And guess what? We got it right. We hit that if branch. So what we get when you do an if and an else, these sets of curly braces here become mutually exclusive. And that's our technical term for it. One and only one of these branches will run. Right? Either this one will run or this one will run. Never both. Because if this is true, we get this. If it's not true, we get this. And that's what C++ does for us. And that's how we make the computer make decisions. Right? We can use this branching logic to say, hey, if some condition is true, do this thing. If it's not, do the other thing. Okay? So, again, not a very interesting game here. So what we could do, and again, this is going to be ugly, and I know it's going to be ugly. I know there are better ways, and if you've ever coded before, don't yell at me. And we're just illustrating an example here. So instead of losing right away, say I want to give them more guesses. Right? And we want to give them a hint, right? We probably want to tell them if they guessed too high or too low, because that's how you usually do a guessing game. Right? When you say, hey, guess a number, you tell them too high, too low, that sort of thing. So let's check. So inside of the else branch, so if they did not guess it right, instead we're going to say, hey, if the guess is less than the secret number, and again, I use a set of curly braces, and everything inside this set of curly braces now belongs to if this is true. So, and you know, some people like their curly braces over here, some people like them down here. I don't care wherever you do it. I'm just taking the defaults. When Visual Studio started, that's my default. Right? If you want to change it, that's perfectly fine. I just ask that you be consistent. It'll drive me crazy if you have it one way sometimes and the other way another time. Right? The OCD-ness is a little bit strong in me. And again, just don't irritate the person grading you. I do have a rubric, so like it's really hard to lose points for silly things like that. But like if I'm irritated and I'm giving partial points, right? You just, you know, I'll be honest, just don't irritate me, and then you're likely to get more partial points. I could be honest with you guys, right? That's fair. All right, so if our guess is less than the secret number, right? This is called a relational operator, right? How does one value relate to another? Less than. We're pretty familiar with this. I know you guys have taken some math classes before, right? So you should understand less than, not too big of a deal. So if it's less, we're just going to see out, you guessed too low, and an end line. Right? And then if I just have an else here, and now this might seem a little funny, but I know that the only way that this code is ever running is if it doesn't match. Because usually there's three cases. You're too low, you're too high, or you guessed it. And it's kind of hard for us to do those three. There's a way, we'll get to it in just a minute. But for now, we're just pretending you can do one or the other, because it makes life easier for us. We'll get to the other ones in just a minute. But, you know, so if you didn't guess too low, you must be too high because you can't have been the number, because we're in the else branch here. Right? So I'm going to say, hey, you guessed too high. Okay? And then we should probably ask them to guess again. So now, outside of this if or else, because one of these and only one of these are run, they're mutually exclusive. I'm either going to get this if or this else, then I can ask them to guess again. So we'll just ask them to guess another number. I'm just going to copy paste because I'm lazy. I mean efficient, right? We'll just say guess a number. Get the guess. Right? Now we're changing the value of guess, right? It used to be the first thing. Now we're going to change it to be another thing. Still inside of they guessed it wrong the first time. Okay? Well, now we need to check again. And now here's where you might be tempted to do an ugly thing. And it's not wrong to do the ugly thing, but I'm going to show you that it's silly to do the ugly thing. So what you might do is you might say, oh, okay, well, I need another if else, and really all of this stuff here, I could just copy and put inside right here and say, oh, okay, get the guess. If the guess matches, you guessed it. Otherwise, if it's too low, you guess too low. Else it's too high, you guess too high. But notice how, like, I'm 3 tabs in now. We got these really helpful dashed lines to kind of show where those curly braces line up. You can also click on them, and then they will show you where their match is. So I'm actually missing one here. So I need to close this else here. Right, so now this else ends here. This else ends here. Now this is the ugly thing, right? Nesting it inside of here is not wrong. This will definitely work for you. Functionally will work. What I'm saying is it's unnecessary and ugly, right? Because I don't need to put it inside of that. Because what's going to happen, right, as soon as this part runs and I see in, I'm going to come to the end of my curly brace and I'm just going to keep going. Right? There's no reason it has to be inside the else, because when this else block is done, it's just going to keep on going here at line 37. So what we can do is I can copy all of this here. There, so I'm actually going to move this up one just to kind of space this out a little bit here. So this, and I am going to put a comment in here because, I mean, this is a little bit helpful just for me to understand. So this is the first guess, right? We tell them guess a number, we check if it's right or not, and then we keep on going, right? So we can just copy all of this here, and we put it in, and this is their second guess, right? Guess a number 1 to 100. If they guessed it right, we tell them they got it right. Otherwise, too high, too low, guess again, right? Same thing. Oh, actually, we don't. That's right. So we have this CNC out already inside of the else. That's better. So I'm going to take that part out. I copy pasted too much. I'm sorry. So their first guess, we need to ask them, and then we're checking. Right, too high, too low, and if it was wrong, we ask them again. Now the second guess. Right, if they guessed it right, perfect. Otherwise, too high, too low, guess again. So that's going to be inside of the you didn't guess it right. So that's the second guess we're going to copy. We'll do a third guess. And how about a fourth and a fifth? And then if you don't get it on the fifth guess here, fifth guess, see out, you lose. The number was, I don't know, secret number and an end line. That's a little bit long for my screen, but again, I'm zoomed in kind of a lot, so that's not too bad here. We tell them they lose. Right, so we should get 5 guesses here. Later, once we do a little bit more with coding, I'm going to tell you if you had to copy paste code, you should feel bad about yourself. But we haven't learned that part yet, so don't worry. If you've taken other coding classes and the word method or function jumps into your head, bravo, good for you. If you know those sorts of things, you're welcome to use them in your projects. I had one person be afraid at one point that I don't even know why, because they wanted to use something that they already knew how to do for a project, and I was like, yes, please do that. You don't have to do it this way. I'm giving you enough tools, then we're going to learn more tools, and then you can use those tools to solve the problem, and then I'll give you more tools, that sort of thing. So if you know other processes, perfect, go for it. So let's try it. We're going to run it. I don't actually need to see guess. I'm going to take that breakpoint out. You just click on the big breakpoint, and it goes away. The big fat red dot. All right, so let's guess a number. Now, if you remember back to how you do this the best way, we want to cut it in half every time. So guess the middle point, and then I get half of either it's too high or too low, right? And then I can guess that middle point, and then I get half of that, and guess and guess and guess. So 5 guesses should be enough for us to get a number 1 to 100, right? Should be. We'll see how well it works. So 50. Oh, it's too low, so we're going to go between 50 and 100. 75, too high. All right, so now between 50 and 75. That's what, 62 or so? 62 is too high. All right, so let's say 57, too high. So it's between 50 and 57, so maybe 54. Oh, too low. Oh, we got close. So I think we might need 6 or 7 guesses then to really get it right here. So we got close. Should we try it again? See if maybe we'll get luckier this time. There's actually a bug in here, a problem, a logic bug, that something I did wrong here that we're going to see, hopefully. We'll see if it shows up here. right, 50 was too low, we'll go 75. 75 was too high, we'll go 63. Too high, so we'll do like 57. Too high, 54. All right, we guessed it. That was on our 5th guess. Is that font big enough? Or I can make this a little bit bigger, I think. I think I want to change defaults. That's what I want. Go to like font size 20. I think it'll do it the next time it runs. Right. Oh, it didn't change it. All right, let's just go to properties and change it. You're supposed to be able to change like the defaults and make it work, but okay, is that a little bit bigger now? All right, 50 is too low, 75 too high, 64 too high, 56 too low, so like 59 maybe. All right, we guessed it. Look at that, we're getting pretty close. All right, I'm going to cheat again here, put my breakpoint back in, because I want to know what the secret number is, because I want to show you that bug that's happening. All right, so 73 is the secret number. Right, see, I don't know if you can see it on the screen here. It's a little bit tiny, but 73 is the secret number. So I'm just going to hit continue. It'll let it keep running. I can take the breakpoint out if I want. And let's guess 73, and we'll see what happens. Ooh, I guessed it 5 times. Right? The one problem we had with not nesting it inside of this else is that we're checking here again. So you could say that was a little bit wrong too. I think the solution to that is easier than putting all of this inside of here, and then all of guess 3 inside of here, and guess 4 inside of there, because then we're going to be like tabbed in, and 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 eventually it's just going to be really hard to see, right? So I think we have an easier way of figuring that out. And what we can do is we can use a Boolean value. Right? A Boolean is either true or false. We can say has guessed it. And we're going to start that off as false, that we have not guessed it. Right? Or no, let's change that around, because I want it to this could work perfectly fine, but I think it'll be easier if we say, like still guessing. We'll say is true. Right? So if we're still guessing, great. So what we can do is, if you guessed it right, we're going to say still guessing is now false. Right? So every time, and now this is the problem, why I say if you copy paste your code, you should feel bad about it, feel bad about yourself, because now I have to go change this 5 times. I have to put it in every single one of these if places here, because I copy pasted. I've got to go put it in here, and in here, and in here. Okay? So we did it. Great. So now anytime we guess it right, in any one of those chances, we're going to set still guessing to false. Now what we can do is, the first guess is fine. It's going to stay as we have to guess once at least. But the second guess, we only want to ask them, right, if they did guess it right, we only want to keep going, right, if they are still guessing. So we don't want to tell them you guessed it if they're not still guessing. So if they are still guessing, great, we want to show them. Right? So in my if expression here, if it matches, right? And I'm going to use a logical operator here. So I'm going to say ampersand ampersand is and still guessing. So if it matched and I'm still guessing because I haven't set this to false yet, then I can tell them they guessed it right, because it must have been from right here. And again, I'm going to have to change this a bunch of times. So logical operators are really powerful because it lets me combine Booleans. Right? It'll combine a true or a false statement here. Now, there's a little bit of a learning curve when you deal with these logical operators, because we have and, which is ampersand ampersand. So that's if both things are true, then the expression is true. If either one of those expressions is false, the whole thing is false. And the example I like to get for this, and I've had people tell me that like they still remember this years later, is when you go to McDonald's and they ask, do you want a burger and fries? You of course say no, because they have nasty fries. No one wants McDonald's fries. They're just gross, right? And they said, do you want a burger and fries? No, I don't want the fries. Right? So I'm saying no to the whole thing, because you don't want burger and fries. If they said, hey, do you want a burger or fries? Then I'll say yes. Their quarter pounders are actually decent now because they're like fresh cooked, right? It's still not fantastic food or by any stretch of the imagination, but at least it's fresh cooked, or so they claim. And I'm going to hold on real tight to that belief that they're true when they say they fresh cook it, and it's not been sitting there for way longer than health code says it's supposed to be, and they're giving me one and it's supposed to be fresh and it's not. Don't break that bubble for me, please. Let me believe, okay? Because I have to have something, right? You know, just let me hold on to that. But if they say a burger or fries, right, of course you're going to say yes, because you want the burger, and they said or, right? You can pick one. So if either one of them is true when you have an or, the whole thing is true. You know, I do actually, I strongly agree, Professor Zero. Wendy's is much better quality, for sure. The problem is there's not one around the corner from my house. It's about a mile farther. And I feel really bad saying that now, that like the 1 mile difference makes it or breaks it for me. But it's just that much closer. Feels terrible. And, you know, I actually do like the McDonald's breakfast menu. I'm a sucker for the breakfast menu because I love breakfast food, especially love breakfast food day round, which apparently was a bad thing for them because there's less markup on the breakfast food, so they make less money selling breakfast food at dinner time or something like that. I mean, there's whole sorts of interesting economics when it comes to McDonald's, and they're fascinating to study, but we can do that another time. So what I get when I'm saying and, right, with this logical and, is if both this and this are true, then the whole expression is true. If either one of these is false, if still guessing is false, or if I did not guess the secret number, if they don't match, if that part is false, the whole thing goes apart, right, and the whole thing is false. So you can do a lot of weird things with logical operators, and there's not necessarily one right way to combine them. Because I could get the same result here by doing ors and nots and all sorts of crazy combinations, and this is why it's confusing. So my strong recommendation is when we're trying to design our solution, just work through all the possibilities in your head and say, okay, so if my guess was the right number, this part is true, and here, like I can even draw this out. This is really cool. I would do this on a whiteboard, but there's no whiteboard back here. But I can draw on my screen here with my pen, so that's kind of fun. So right here I have a couple options. Right? So we have if I guessed it correctly, guess correctly, and this is still guessing. Okay? I know those are kind of terrible there, but and then here's my result. So if I guessed correctly is yes, and I'm still guessing is yes. True and true. My result will be true. Because I'm anding together here. So this is with ampersands, right? Ampersands. If I did not guess it correctly, and I'm still guessing, my result here is no or false, right? Because I'm anding together. If any one of them is false. If I guessed it correctly, but I'm not still guessing, I already guessed it right, but it tells me, hey, I guessed the right number, I'm going to get a big fat no, a big fat false here. And the last case, right, if I did not guess it correctly and I'm not guessing, I mean, this should never happen, but, you know, we could get into some weird situation, so why not? You know, we're going to check and see if our logic holds up here, right? Then if either one of them is false or no, right, the whole thing is no. So the only time I'm going to tell you that you guessed it is if you guessed it correctly and you're still guessing. So it looks like the video froze, but that might just be me. Is it going okay for you guys? I forgot to check Twitch Inspector on my other computer. Here we go. Let's see what it says. You know, I got kids downstairs streaming movies or whatever they're doing right now, but I should have enough bandwidth for it to be halfway decent. We'll give it a shot. Yeah, says it's stable-ish enough. Okay. All right, do let me know if you have any trouble. Obviously, if I'd like drop off of Twitch, I might not see the things, but I do have Discord on my phone as well. So like if you @ me, it'll probably do things there too. Yeah. Cool. Hey, Uncle Bill, thanks for dropping by. I need a refill of my coffee here, so give me just a second. Hopefully you guys brought yours. We're going to try and take a break right about 7 o'clock or so. Again, probably about every hour. I'll try and take a break. I know it's a long time to sit. Hopefully you're more comfortable than you are in the classroom. But I did hear, if you are familiar with the Orchard Ridge campus and F building, where we typically have our computer classes, that the heating and cooling system has been terrible forever now, which blows my mind. Like 50 years ago, we literally had someone on the moon. And yet we can't keep a stupid classroom at a decent temperature. Okay. You are getting banned here. How do I do that? I have not had to ban anyone yet. This is my first spam here. Let's time them out first. And then if they come back, I'll ban them. Because just in case one of you was actually a student and being super helpful. Time out 10 minutes? What happened? Yes, I wanted to time out for 10 minutes. Okay, good. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm going to default to timeouts first, just in case like my student was being funny. So, yeah, I can buy my Twitch followers. Sure, I want to be famous. That's the goal. Let's get some more coffee. All right, I think we're good to go. Again, we'll try and take a break. So while we're out, they apparently are fixing the HVAC system in F building, and I have been not promised, but I've been told, yeah, face, drop those emotes. I love it, the coffee emotes. I've been told that the HVAC problem is supposed to be fixed when we come back to campus, so I can hope. I mean, 50 years ago, man on the moon survived. Yet you can't keep a building at the right temperature. Just boggles my mind, but that's okay. That is okay. We will survive. So when you're doing these Boolean expressions, right, and, ors, or not. So and, or, not are our Boolean expressions. They help us operate on true or false things here. Right, so we're anding. If they're both true, the whole thing's true. Or if either's true, the whole thing's true. So for an or, we would do pipe, pipe. It's a really weird character. It's the shift / over the enter key if you have a standard keyboard. Not the /, which is a question mark, but the / shift is pipe, pipe is my or operator here. So just keep that in your back pocket. Again, you can always look it up. I'm never going to ask you these things by memory. But relational operators will probably be showing up on your quiz. Boolean expression, Boolean operators will be showing up in your quiz. Relational operators will also show up on the quiz. Right? So relational operators, like are you equal, are you greater than, are you less than, and you might also be familiar with the not equal. So the exclamation here, exclamation point, is the not operator. So not equals is if you don't match, is the opposite, or you could also say a not on any one of those things. And here's where it gets super messy. So I could say not still guessing, and I could reverse that Boolean. Right? So not true is false. Not false is true. I don't recommend you do this if you can help it, because it just gets confusing really quickly. There are great reasons to use not. Certainly are. But if you can help it, you want to avoid using them as much as possible. And that's why I had changed that. I had this, have guessed it correctly, and I set to false, and I was going to set it to true when I was going to use it, but then I remembered, oh wait, I want to use it here, and I want the easy case to be true, right? Then I'm still guessing so that I can and this together. Again, I've done it a couple times. That made sense to me. It's going to be awkward for you your first time, your second time, your third time. That's okay. Not a big deal if it's awkward. It will just take practice. So again, draw it out. Right? Say, hey, if this is a yes and this is a yes, what do I get? If this is a no, this is a yes, what do I get? Definitely worth your time to try and draw this out and just think through the logic steps of it here. Again, when it comes to coding, the hard part is not typing some text in the computer. Right? The hard part is breaking down a problem step by step by step by step into small enough chunks that you can tell a computer to do it. Because computers are dumb. They can only do small things at a time. So we have to figure out how we break the problem down into small enough chunks for the computer to swallow. So this sort of designing step here is super helpful, super useful. Okay? So that's logical ANDing here. And, you know, I just left the PowerPoint way behind, and I'm feeling a little bit bad now, but that's okay. Also, this I think is a no-brainer, but it does come up every now and then, is that these operators also have an order of precedence. And hopefully what you're thinking is, well, I can't AND something that's not true or false. So the relational operators have a higher precedence. So it's not secret number and still guessing equals guess here. Right? We're going to do the equals first because this will give me the Boolean, true or false, that I can then AND with this one. So relational operators first, then my logical operators. Okay? You can also have multiple relational operators in a single expression. That gets really crazy. You can, and it's just awkward, so try not to again. So we have if, we have else. Yep. Yeah, this here, the technical term for this Boolean value, this variable, you might call this a flag at this point. So we're using this as a flag to indicate some sort of process here. And again, let's cheat and make sure that it's working, right? Write some code and try it. Write some code and try it. Write some code and try it. And I know a lot of you said you really like to learn by doing, and I'm feeling bad that you've been sitting here just watching me do and you haven't had a chance to do. So we'll take a break. You guys can try doing some of this stuff, see if it works for you. Let me know if you have trouble. Then we'll circle back up and go on to some new stuff, and then we'll try and take a break again. But I want to make sure you also get a break. So like, don't spend your entire break trying things and not getting up and stretching. Your body will thank you later. So I'm going to put the breakpoint in anywhere after secret number. Because if I put it here, it's actually going to not run that line until I step over. So I'm going to hit run. It should pause here after it assigns that random number. It's weird they've all been like in the 50s lately. Let's see what we get now. There we go, 60. Okay, so they're changing, right? So we get 60 as the secret number. So I'm going to hit continue, and let's see if I give it 60 the very first guess. Right, the goal here was for it not to tell me that I guessed it right every time. Well, we have another bug. We guessed it, but then we hit the else branch. Right, what happened here, because this whole part was not true, it was mutually exclusive, we got put into here. And it told me, oh, you guessed too high. Oh man, all right, this is getting trickier to not nest it here, but I promise it's worth it because it will be a little bit cleaner later on instead of nesting inside of that else and that else and that else and that else and going 5 levels deep. Definitely could have worked. Now I'm feeling a little bad. It's going to take so much work. So what we can do here now is we can add another condition. So we can have an else. No, we're going to use loops. The next chapter will make the whole thing cleaner. Yeah, a loop will definitely fix it too, Face. You're spot on there, but we're going to pretend loops don't exist yet because we haven't got to that chapter. And we do have a few people who have never coded before. So if you're brand new to this, please let me know if stuff doesn't make sense. Right? I don't want it to feel like it's moved way past you and then you're sitting there frustrated. So please ask questions if it's not clear. We can spend more time to go over it. Oh yeah, that thermal pot is fantastic. My coffee stays hot. Yeah, the very top, like where I'm declaring my variables. I had to add the C standard library, and C time so I could use random, and then time for seeding the random here, where those two includes. And then we take this line srand time of 0 to set the random seed value for our pseudo random number generator. We get a secret number. Random gives me a really big number, right? So we're going to mod 100, so I get 0 to 99, add 1, so it's 1 to 100, and we should be good to go. This is the second pot of the day. I apologize if I'm mumbling fast. Do shout at me. One of my friends, Dr. Gaines, who teaches chemistry, had a really cool those like channel point things where she had one, it would like pop up a big question mark and it was the like confused, slow down thing, and I was meaning to copy that from her and I forgot. So all I can do is some of these other functions here. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another condition. So before I said we really can only do if and else. And that doesn't actually work out that well, because like what we had said, let me just come down here to like a big blank space. If we wanted to do the very first check, right, and not have to do the nested stuff, we could say if it was less than, do this thing. If it was greater than, do this thing. Or if it was equals, do this thing. And right, I have 3 different branches of code. Right? And there is a way to do that. So what we could do then for that is you use a chained expression. So the chaining expression says if, else if. So right immediately attached to the else, we're going to add an if. So we can do that here. So on our second guess, no, we'll change it right in here. So I'm going to say else if immediately. So if it didn't match, I immediately get this else here. So if this one, go to this branch. Else if this one's true, go to this branch. If neither of those are true, do this branch. And you can have as many else ifs as you want. Right? You can have 50 of these things all stacked together. So if this one, 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 as many as you need to create those different cases for you. It's perfectly fine. Again, at some point it's a little bit confusing, but if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. Right? So in our case, we're saying, all right, if you guessed it, great. If you didn't guess it, and so it's essentially saying not this, but this. And then this one's saying not this and not this. But we don't want to have to do all that logic, right? So some of that logical stuff we can just tie together with our if, else's here. We'll tell them we guessed too high, guessed too low, whatever here. Now what we're going to do here is I can check right here. I can just have another if still guessing. And now a lot of people when they're new to programming are going to say if still guessing equals true. And again, always use your curly braces. I love curly braces. Perfect, right? Definitely need the curly braces. This still guessing equals true, perfectly fine. We'll get the job done, but it's redundant because all you need inside of an if is a true or false expression. And still guessing all by itself already is true, right? If you think about kind of drawing that out, right? If, what are we going to get here with still guessing? So if still guessing is true, does true equal true? Check. Does false equal false? No. So if it's true, this runs. If it's false, it doesn't run. Right? Well, that's already what we get just from the value here. We don't ever need to compare it at all. It's sort of it's redundant, so it irritates me because it's not needed. So if still guessing, then ask them to guess again. Right? Then we can check, hey, if the guess matches and they're still guessing, we'll tell them they got it right or not. So now I can move all of these here. I'm going to grab this, let's see, just to that else if here. Now it's going to get a little funny, so I'm going to remove all of those here. And again, this is why the repeated code is terrible. I feel bad with all that repeated code in here. But we're kind of modifying it, tweaking it as we go. So now I'm going to pop in this else if. Right, so now for my second guess, if I guessed it right and I'm still guessing, I'll get my message. If that's false and the guess is less, otherwise this. This could still give me some problems here. So what I'm going to do is another if here, right? So I really want if the guess is greater than the secret number, do this. So now you'll notice there's no trailing else case. I only have ifs. If this is true, if this is true, or if this is true. That's okay. You don't have to have an else. There's no rule that says you have to have the else. You might also call that else the default case. If it doesn't match any of these other ones here, we have a default. Because that way, Otherwise, I know this could be false if I guessed it right. So that would be false, this would be false, and then my else would have told me I guessed too high because I never even bothered to check. But now, if I guessed it right, but I'm done guessing, this doesn't run, it's not too low and it's not too high, so none of that runs here. So that's going to be the secret sauce here. We're going to add this last if, the else case here. Okay, so then we'll go grab all of that. And again, we might as well, just because I like consistency. It's not needed up here, but that's okay. I'm going to put it up here just to keep everything matching, because that'll make life just be a little prettier. All right, so for my second guess, great. I'm going to grab all this else if stuff here. And then there's no else here. We're just, if we're still guessing, ask them to guess again. Right? And I think at this point, right, if they guessed it, we'd stop. So this could probably be an else at this point as well, which is kind of fun. And again, that's why it's a little confusing, a little bit awkward. I know it sounds like we're kind of rambling here, but there's lots of different ways to approach the problem. And as long as we solve it, we're going to be okay. And I just want to kind of show you there's lots of different ways of going about it. So we're going to say, hey, if... Oh no, that's not going to work because I'm going to output too high, too low, and then I do want them to guess again here. Because if one of these runs, if this was chained in there, it'd be mutually exclusive. So now right now, these are all mutually exclusive because they're chained together. One and only one of these will run, or maybe even none. If none of them are true, none of them run. But at most, one will run. Because what C++ does, as soon as it finds one that's true, and it runs it, it jumps down to the end of the chain, and we're done. So as soon as one of these ifs triggers, the rest of them get ignored. So if I matched, it ignores this one and it ignores this one. They never even run. It doesn't even bother checking them. Because it said, oh, I never got to the else. And if I never got to the else, it's never going to look at it. So let's see. Let's see if we can copy all this here. Right, for my fourth guess and my fifth guess. And let's try it. Let's see if it's going to work for us. And we'll try it without peeking at the random number, and then we'll try it with peeking at the random number. See if we can get this going here. Oh, I'm sorry, I peeked. It's 49. I forgot to take the breakpoint out. So let's try it. We'll give it the right number at 49. We guessed it. It didn't ask me again. It didn't tell me too high, too low. This looks like it was successful. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now let's try without peeking. And we're going to split the difference in the middle. Too high, so we're going to 25. Too high, so like 12. Too high, let's go down to, say, 6. Too high, how about 3? Well, 3 was too low, so somewhere between 3 and 6. So it's got to be 4 or 5. What do you guys think? Should I guess 4 or should I guess 5? 5. Oh, it doesn't even check it. Oops. That last check here I copy-pasted. Remember, I got rid of that last fifth guess? Right? So we're not going to ask them to guess again. We're going to just tell them you lose, the number was, and then the secret number. Wondered why I got a sixth guess. That looked a little funny. Right, so if we didn't guess it right, we're going to tell them too high, too low, and then if we didn't get it, we're going to tell them what the number was. All right, help me out here. Let's see if we can get it right. So we're going to try 50. 50 is too low, so it's 75. 75 is too low. Was that like 87? Too low. 92? I think too low. 95? Too low. Oh, it was all the way to 97. We lost. Let's try it again. We're gonna get lucky one of these times. So 50, 75. Ooh, too high. So like 62. 62 is too high. So 57. 57 is too high. How about 54? It was 56. Let's try it again. 50, 25, 12, 6, 3. It was 5. All right, I just want to see if it's going to work like midway through and not prompt me again. So I'm going to cheat here because you guys are probably bored of watching that happen now. I'm going to give it some wrong answers and then a right one. All right, so I know the right answer is 70. Okay, I can see that here from my debugger. So let's do like 50, and then we'll do 80, and then we'll do 70. And we guessed it and it stops. So again, try your code, run it, make sure it works, make sure you're in good shape and it's happy. I'm going to commit this. This is the random number guessing game here I'm going to commit and push. And commit, you have to give it a message. Usually it should be something nice and meaningful. And then push, make sure github.com has it. Commit and push early and often. Commits are free. Commits are great because it puts it on the cloud or someone else's computer and you're happy. We're a little bit over when I wanted to take a break. I apologize. So why don't we take 10 minutes, come back, say at 7:22 or so. I'm going to start back up Spotify. Do you guys like the background music? I figure it's better than just nothing. And it was kind of fun. I found this little tool that would pull the latest song out of Spotify. So it would show it as this NCIS or NCS, the no copyright sound. They give their music away for content creators to use as long as we tell them what it is. So I have a little app that'll pull that into my OBS settings here in my starting soon scene. It'll pull the text in as soon as I start something. So let's go back. You want to do electronic? I had gaming music going on before. Let's try the electronic track, see how that is. And of course Spotify is slow, but see what happens here. All right, let's give that a shot. And I'll see you guys at about 7:22. Oh, there you go. I had to unmute the desktop. Sorry.
We use this tiny microphone to find out how your taste buds feel about new Bud Light Seltzer.
One more sip. One. Oh, they're gonna do it!
Bud Light Seltzer, your mouth's favorite seltzer. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch, Bud Light Seltzer, IRC Beer, beer in Texas, St. Louis, Missouri.
Love getting prices that are lower than low on food that's fresher than fresh? Then shop at Kroger. We give you more ways to save on the fresh you love with tools like the Kroger app, where you can find personalized coupons on top of weekly sales, giving you prices that are lower than the everyday low. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Now through September 22nd, you can earn 4 times the fuel points on gift cards. Just download your digital coupon. Restrictions apply. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
It's Motown Harley's pre-owned black and orange tag sale this week. Hundreds of Harleys tagged with liquidation pricing. Good credit, bad credit, no credit, 100% of applications accepted. Save thousands this week. Only at Motown Harley's pre-owned black and orange tag sale ends this Sunday. Approved credit.
Inspired by State Farm's surprisingly great rates.
It's so cheap. Yeah, got a great rate on the down low. 'Cause Jake isn't your average Joe.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Alrighty, how you guys doing? No questions in Discord. That's all right. So, sure. If you had a chance to try it, cool. If not, we'll have some time at the end where we can have some time. You can try some of this stuff, and we can go from there. Let me do. If you want to grab this, just want to make sure I'm hitting all the right stuff, and it's actually easier for me to flip through the PowerPoint a little bit than it is to flip through the book while I'm going. Usually I use the book in class, but I don't really have a lot of room here on my desk to be flipping through it. So we'll do it this way. All right, cool. I'll just throw this up on my other screen. So while that loads, apparently the area we're in. Oh, where'd my coffee cup go? Sorry, I can use this one. The area we're in has been having some trouble. Oh, yep. It's copyright content. Uh-oh, I'm gonna get in trouble. So let me just put that up here. The area we're in has been having trouble where people keep going and they're taking the tires off of cars. Have you ever seen that? They bring some cinder blocks and they like put them right underneath the car and then let the air out of the tires so they can pull them off, because the car then will sink down onto the cinder blocks. It's like bricking a car, and it's been happening a lot. So the local police department here was sitting out on a stakeout, and apparently they left their car to go do something. I don't know what was happening, and they came back and their car had been bricked. So now we got this big citywide message here. The police are working tirelessly to catch these people. That was a free dad joke. You're welcome. Feel free to redeem your bites, your channel points anytime if you want more. I do miss the in-person setting where I can like see all of you guys groaning and your reaction to the terrible dad jokes. They're not quite as fun if I don't see everyone like, oh, that was a bad one. So, but I do try for sure. All right, so we're back here with our if-else stuff. We're doing pretty well getting through all the text. Let's see. Ifs, falses, yeah. If else's, that's good. If else ifs, chaining together, perfect. All right, so a nice use of this sort of thing is like some sort of menu where like, hey, do you want to do this thing or this thing or this thing, and you tell me which one it is, and we can do one or the other. Let me actually, I'll leave this guessing game project alone. I might start up another project here because I don't want to have to guess every single time. So I'm just going to start a new project. And we'll come back to the guessing game when we get to the next chapter, because we can find a way to make this work a little bit easier here. So this is chapter 4, menu example. All right, and I'll make that. It'll put some files in my GitHub repository folder, perfectly fine. I'll commit them in just a minute, and we'll be good to go. I unmuted myself, right? Okay, good. I think I can hear myself. One time I was going on and on and on, and I was still muted, and no one told me, which is really sad. So do shout if I'm doing something stupid. Honestly, will not feel bad at all. I'll just be happy you told me. Okay, so I've got my basic program here. Oh, I want to go, again, I'm going to copy this little shell out. So I'm just going to copy all that, paste it in, and pull out the stuff I don't want, which is pretty much all of it here. We'll do strings because we want the menu. So we're going to say, welcome to the Byte Snack Shop. Right? Sure. And then we can ask them a couple things. Do you want to, or what do you want to buy? Or maybe we'll just show them what's on the menu. So what sort of things do we sell? So maybe we'll sell, how about some muffins? Or a specific one. So chocolate chip muffin. And again, we can use these tabs, those escaped characters. I think I briefly mentioned that. Just know they exist in the book. You can do your own new lines. Tabs are fine too. We'll say, hey, that's $1 for a muffin. And line. And then what else are we going to sell here at our snack shop? So let's give them some easier options. We'll say 1 chocolate chip muffin. We'll say 2 is barbecue chips, barbecue potato chips. And how about a third option here? So there's the sweet, there's the salty. We should go with, I don't know, what else is something good that we should sell at our Byte Snack Shop? How about some ice cream? So Klondike bar. Klondike. Is that how you spell it? I should Google it now. No, it's going to bother me. Klondike bar. Yeah, okay. Looks like I spelled it right. That's what it's suggesting at least. So we'll sell a Klondike bar. So the potato chips are going to be probably, what, $1.50. And then the Klondike bar is probably $2 because that's more expensive ice cream here. Right, and then we can have a string, lowercase s, a string for purchase, choice, sure. And then we can see in to purchase choice. Right, we'll ask them what they want to buy, and then we'll grab that input. Great, and then maybe we can tell them, hey, this is how much it's going to cost you. Let's see if that works first. We'll just, again, write a little bit and run, write a little bit and run. That's the flow we want to get into. That's a good habit. Oh, that's ugly. So I want to do another tab here and probably 2 more tabs there. I can type in a number and it should be okay. So let's do some more tabs. Again, just trying to clean this up. Maybe 2 extra tabs there. Right, and now I can check. So I can say, hey, if my purchase choice is equal to a 1, and again, because I did it as a string, I need to make sure I'm comparing strings. Maybe it'd be easier if that was an int, right? As an int purchase choice, I can check, hey, if it equals the numeric 1, the integer 1. That's why menus are pretty helpful, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's easy to do these sort of checks here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave that for now. I'm going to say else if my purchase choice is equal to a 2, and again, just leave it there, and then else if. It could just be an if or an else, like a default case. I'm assuming if it's not a 1 or 2, it's probably a 3. But if the user types in 7 or 0 or something, they probably didn't want one of these things here. So I'm going to be explicit and have ifs all the way around the board here. Purchase choice is 3, great. That sort of thing. So then we'll just see out, enjoy your chocolate chip muffin, and then line, you can see out here, so if they bought some potato chips, yummy barbecue chips, and if they bought an ice cream bar, we'll ask them, what will you do for this? Right, what will you do for a Klondike bar? Right. Tell me you guys know that at least, right? I think they still advertise that sort of thing. So we can build some sort of menu and have them tell us what they want here, and then we can do some sort of output based on that. Right? And let's see if that works. Again, a little bit and run, a little bit and run. All right, so what do you guys want to buy? What should we purchase? And it looks like we've got our tabs right. Again, that's sort of just a guessing game. Try it and see if it lines up. Try it and see if it lines up until you get something close to pretty. All right, a Klondike bar. What will you do for this? Perfect. We got the right option there. Feeling pretty good so far, right? That it did the purchase choice. And this is nice, right? I can add more items to my menu later, right? Again, still not super interesting and dynamic at this point, but that's okay. And then maybe we can ask them, hey, do you want to buy anything else? Right? So maybe we'll do this as a string. Yeah, string buy more. And then we can ask them, do you want to buy more? And like, usually it's helpful if you prompt your user like yes or no, Y or N, like tell me yes or no. And then in this case, I only really care if they say yes. Right, so we'll cin buy more. And then really if buy more is equal to a yes, we're going to do something. And now C++ is case sensitive, so we do have to be careful. We got a couple options here. One of the easiest ones is we can say is if buy more is equal to lowercase y, or buy more is equal to uppercase y. Right, we can do something here. Right, there's other options we have. We'll get into those a little bit later, but right, just grab the first lowercase and compare it to the uppercase. And if either one of these is true, the whole or is true, and we'll get inside my block here, and life is good. Right, now, again, I could print the menu, that sort of thing. This is a little bit ugly at this point. I'm feeling a little bit bad about it, so maybe we can make it prettier, but it'll be easier in the next chapter once we can start talking about this idea of loops here. But I can do that sort of menu, and I can get some sort of option. One cool thing to know with these logical operators or and, C++ is smart enough to know if the first thing here is true, it actually will do this thing called short-circuiting, and it does not even check the second. Because it knows, hey, if this first thing is true, I'm not going to waste the time, the CPU cycles, the activity to check the next thing, because it doesn't actually matter. If anything in an OR is true, the whole OR is true. And you can get crazy with ORs. You can have like multiple ORs, true, OR 10 equals 10. I mean, those are silly, obviously, but you can chain all of these ORs together, and then if any one of those ORs is true, the whole OR is true. Now that gets tricky if you want to say like this and another thing. And if you're doing that situation, I strongly recommend you use parentheses to force the order of operations. Say, okay, this thing here and the thing over here. Being very explicit which one you want. So just be careful when you're doing all of those, because it will make a difference. And again, try it. Put it in and try it. Put it in and try it. Test it. See, you can make one of those lovely charts. They're not bad to do at all, and see what you're going to get out and what you expect. And that's kind of fun. So we can buy more, right? That sort of thing. It'll short circuit. It does the same thing as well with our ands. So if we're anding and it gets to a false, it doesn't bother evaluating the next part, because if anything in an and is false, the whole thing is false. So it's short-circuiting. It's a cool little is it an optimization? I think is our technical term for it. And do be careful, because nots will happen first, and then ands, and then ors. So the logical operators do have an order of precedence as well, right? Along with them being compared with relational operators and all sorts of that goodness. Do be careful. Again, you can check the text for more examples there. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so let's do another. So we will buy more, sure. See out. You really want more? You can't handle more. Just again, trying to have a little bit of fun with it and be silly. If you're not enjoying yourself, then you're just going to be miserable. So try and be silly and clever when you can help it, because you can make yourself smile at least. I don't know, so it's not really used. You want more? Okay. So another thing we can do is we can use those chained if-elses to find some sort of slot that is going to fit into. So there's a great example, right? I can take a numeric grade score and turn it into a letter. So we'll see out enter your percentage score as a whole number, right, like 0 to 100. Again, the more info you give your users, the better chance you have of getting good input. If you just tell your users to enter a score, you might get, I don't know, I mean, most people are relatively used to using whole numbers and not saying, hey, my score was 0.97, but 0.97 is technically 97%. If you're telling someone you got a 97%, 0.97 is not wrong, it's just not expected, right? We would expect like a 97. So just tell them, hey, give me out of this range. And then what we can do, we can declare an integer for score, and we can see in score, and then we can check it, right? I can say, hey, if the score is less than 0, or the score is greater than 100, see out, that's an invalid score, that sort of thing. So I can check, right? So I'm doing a little bit of sanity checking here. If it's less than 0 or if it's greater than 100. So those are the out-of-bound scores. It's no good. If it's not that, then I can get into my else, and these are actually going to be all else ifs too. So this is if my score is, so I know it's going to be between 0 and 100. So now I'm going to check if the score is, say, less than 60 something or other. What's the, I can go look it up here. We can be precise, because why not? Why not do it? We'll find that page with our little chart. Here we go. So if you get less than 63%, so less than 63, you also get less than or equal to operators, right? Less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. In this case, it's specifically less than 63. Oops, I have too many of these curly braces, sorry. We're going to see out F and an end line. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take advantage of this chain here, because it's going to check in order. So if it's out of bounds, first, that's the first thing we check, great. Then I'm going to check, hey, if it's a failing grade, great. Now, because I know they're going to check in order, if it's not a failing grade, it's got to be above that, but less than 100. Right, or less than or equal to 100, I guess I should say. So I'm going to copy all of that, and I'm just going to change that now. So the next possible range is going to be less than 66. Right? If you're less than 66, but more than 63, greater than or equal to 63, you're going to be in the D range. Right? So then that is a D. So it's less than 66. Now, there's nothing wrong here with saying so it's less than 66 and score is greater than or equal to 63. And this is where you got to be careful, right? Because this one is less than 63, so make sure that this one includes 63 with less than or greater than or equal to. Right? Make sure that you use one of those two sides needs to be that number, especially if we're asking for whole numbers. Right? We know we're not going to get decimal places, so just be careful that you're including it at some point. And now, this is not wrong, but it's just redundant, because in order to get to this check, this part has to not be true. Right? And if score is not less than 63, I know this is going to be true, so it's just kind of redundant to put in there. Nothing wrong with it being there, but again, it's just redundant, so we don't need it. And again, if we don't need it, it's more work, we don't need to do it. Right? Don't do more work than we need. Okay? Then we have, if my score is less than a 70, it's a D+. Right? Let's check our chart here. Right? Less than 70, right? D+. Perfect. And we're just going to keep on going our way up, 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 all the way to A's. There is no A+, right? That's a made-up thing that people do sometimes. I don't know why, but sometimes people like the D+ there, or an A+, but it's really just an A. So I'm trying to flip back and forth here on the other screen. Make sure I'm checking chat. That's why it looks like my neck's way up high, sorry. I need to get a webcam that's like right in the middle here or something. Okay, so that's our D+. And then if it's not invalid, and it's not less than 63, if it's not less than 66, it's not less than 70, let's check our next range. It must be less than 70, is it 74? Nope, 73, sorry. I don't know where I got that from, 73. So if it's less than 73, then that's a C-. Right? That's the lower end of the C is a C-, and then 73 to 76, less than 76 is a C, C+, on and on and on. So we're almost there. So that's the C-. I'm going to copy both of these here, and I'll get the C and the C+. So that is 76 and 80. Right? If you are not less than 63, not less than 66, not less than 76, but less than 80, it's got to be a C+. Right, I'm going to copy these ones again. For the B's, this feels a little tedious, but that's okay. Right, a B minus, a B, and a B plus. This is just what we're doing. One of these things will match, and that's okay. So that's less than an 83, less than an 86, and less than a 90. And then the last ones here, I just need a minus and a regular. We'll do less than 93 is an A minus. And now we could here just have an else, right? Because if I get all the way down to here, right, that could just be the A. I know that it is valid because the first check here is invalid, less than 0 or more than 100. Right, the first check. So if we get to any of these other ones, I know it's going to be a score, and we're checking, we're working our way up that scale. If it's less than this, it's an F, less than this, it's a D, on and on and on. This could be an else. Right, perfectly fine. If you want, right, you're welcome to have the if here and say score is less than 100, but this does need to be a less than or equal to. Because otherwise, at 100, you wouldn't have been assigned anything. So, again, if you like the default case, where there's no if, perfectly fine. If you like having the if here, that's okay too. Right? There's nothing wrong with making it match everything else. Just be careful that this one is also an equals to. Less than or equal to. And it's got to be both, because it's got to match that this first one is here, because 100 is a valid score. Okay, let's try it. And so we'll code and run, Now let's buy the Klondike bar. Anything other than a Y, right, shouldn't give us anything, right? And let's try the capital Y, make sure that works too, right? You want more, you can't handle more. Right, a percentage score. What score should we pretend we got here? I'm open to any value. We're just going to test this out. We're going to try a couple different numbers, and we'll see what values we get here, right? Because the general rule of thumb here when it comes to testing your code to make sure it works right is any code that's worth writing is worth testing. And hopefully in your mind that is telling you everything is worth testing, right? If it was worth your time to write it, it's worth your time to make sure that you did it right? To test and ensure and double check that yes, everything is happening as it's supposed to. So go ahead, shout out a score for me there in chat, and I'll plug it in. And we'll give this a little test run, see what we get. 21. Ooh, you are just in sad shape there. That is an F. Boom. Let's try it again. Give me another score. I'm going to buy more Klondike bars. Love Klondike bars. They make peanut butter Klondike bars now. They're amazing. Maybe I should get into the referral business. There's a lot of things I recommend. But, all right, 72. That should be, right, if we check our chart here, 72 should be a solid C minus, right, in that range. So we want to know what we're expecting. So let's try it. C minus. All right, cool. Let's try another one. No more extra food this time. I had enough Klondike bars. Give me another score, somebody. Should we test that 100? 96. All right, that should be a solid A. Perfect. Looking good so far. Let's test one of the out-of-bounds numbers. Let's give it like a negative number. So like -1. Invalid score. You don't get a grade. Denied. Yes, 101. What? That's invalid. You don't get extra credit in this class. There is no extra credit. There might be a stretch goal on the last project that could get you some extra points. We'll talk about it when we get there. Again, typically the school of thought that it's college and it's silly to offer extra credit. But if it's something specific to the assignment that like you're going above and beyond, I'm possibly open to the idea. If someone's getting more than 100% in the class, like either they're working too hard or, you know, one of those things. All right, so we can use that sort of menu, right? And we can make it fall into one of these ranges. Cool. Mathematical notation, you might see in math class, like score. You would love to say if 0 is less than score and less than 100 or less than or equal to, right? Less than or equal to. You'd love to say that this would be valid, right? Doesn't work though, which is unfortunate. And it doesn't even error, which is the worst part. But this is invalid, and we're going to get some weird operations. So we'll just see out. What? And let's put a breakpoint here. We'll see what happens. See if it even lets me run. So notice I've got an if and then another if here. That's okay. They don't have to be chained together. So typically for like style guidelines, if they're not, I should have some white space here to like separate them visually so that you know they're not supposed to be touching and I just forgot to put the else because I'm dumb. That sort of thing. So by Klondike bar, don't need more. We'll add our value. We'll say we got a, I don't know, like a 77. What? Why did it even hit my breakpoint? Bummer. Huh. That's cool. Right, 77. Got my watt. That's a C+. Looks like it's working okay so far. Let's try a different value. Why didn't it hit my breakpoint? Now I'm confused. Should have hit the breakpoint. Let's try it again. Let's try Klondike bar, no more, 101. Oh, there's the breakpoint. Okay, maybe I just missed it here. So when you're using debug mode, I'm sorry, these are small, it's not zoomed in very well, but you have 3 little debug arrows. You have a step in, you have a step over, and you have a step out. They're all used for different things. So if you want to go into that check, or into a like a set of curly braces, we want into. Over will just go to the next one. So we want to step in. Wait, what? My score is 101. Why am I getting what? Well, what we're getting is the first part's evaluating. Yeah, score is greater than or equal to 0. It's like throwing this part away, right? Because this is invalid notation and it's just confused and awkward. Oof, that's weird, right? Like I shouldn't get the what. And then it's going to go check and say it's an invalid score. All right, we can continue and it'll finish my program. So that's no good. But now let's try like less than 0. We'll try a negative number. 3, no more, -1. Let's see if we get the watt here. We'll step in. We still get a watt. What, score is less than 0? Well, it's still giving me that as true here. Oops, I did not want to step in. So stepping in on the C out is wrong. So I want to step back out here. There we go, and I can step over. So I still get a watt. So you can see it's just bad news bears all around, right? So don't do this. This is bad news bears. Work and seems to always fire. Okay, so don't do that sort of thing. I'm going to leave it here with this big ugly comment note just so that you can see it. Hopefully that makes sense and you're not too scared. Should be good. All right. Oh, some other things we might want to do. So we were doing this with numeric input using an int, right? We could do this with strings, and there's nothing wrong with that. Especially when you're using numbers, you don't have to worry about uppercase or lowercase, right? Which is nice. So if we did this string as the purchase choice, now I don't want to compare it to the numeric one. I want to compare it to the string one. And this will actually work, because what's going to happen is when you compare, does a string equal another string? It's going to check letter by letter, case by case, one at a time. Does the first letter match? Does the second letter match? Does the third letter match? Does the fourth letter match? On and on and on. And if all of them match, the 2 strings will be equal. If you have one mismatch in there, then they're not equal because they're not the same string. So strings are okay for simple menu choices. They get trickier when you're using bigger words, right? Like the yes or the no. So 3 still gives me my Klondike bar, yes or no, my number. I don't need the breakpoint anymore. I'll just continue on. 50 should fail. We still get our watt because it's obnoxious. Okay, but strings are okay here. Now, if I didn't give them that option, I just said like chocolate chip muffin, barbecue chip potatoes, and Klondike bar, I could check, hey, did they type chocolate chip muffin? Did they type barbecue potato chips? And you can see why this would be really obnoxious for a user, right? And it's really obnoxious for our code, because what if I didn't have capital letters? Well, let's see what happens. Now, I'm probably going to typo things because I'm a terrible speller here. Oh, I did 3, and it didn't come up. Yeah, nothing matched. Oops, of course 3 didn't match. Let me try that again, sorry. I've gotten to the point of not jitters, but I'm feeling really good with the amount of coffee I've had. All right, let's try a barbecue potato chips. Didn't like it. Barbecue potato chips. That didn't like it. Did I type something wrong? Maybe I did. Let's try it again. Expecting it to tell me yummy barbecue chips, right? I don't think I typed anything wrong. Let's try it again. Barbecue. Oh, I used CIN. And CIN, if you remember back, see, you guys, you have to be paying attention to chat and yelling at me when I do stupid things. When you CIN, as soon as you put a space in there, what does CIN do with it? Stops. Right? So all I was getting, so this is when debug is actually really helpful too. Like I can put a breakpoint in here, and I can check and see, hey, what is my input? What does it look like? So that's why we call it debugging, right? It helps me find those logic errors. So barbecue, potato, chips, right? Whatever. All I get from my purchase choice is BBQ. Right? Because as soon as it found a space, it stopped. So I don't want to use CIN for this one here. I want to use the getLine function. So getLine, right? I want to, the first one is CIN, and the next one is where do I want to store that line? Purchase choice. Now I should be able to compare the whole string, including spaces. Again, still terrible for a menu, right? That just does not work very well, and it's not very pretty. But that's okay. We'll do barbecue potato chips. And now we get barbecue potato chips. And I can watch here. I can do my steps and see if one of these becomes true. There we go. So I was doing step. So step over. It landed, hey, the next line to run here is cout. So you see my yellow arrow here. So I'll run that line. It gets to the curly brace. And now we're going to jump to the end of that branch, this if else, at the next line of code. And we can see that one worked. So just be careful when you're doing strings there. There's some really cool things you can do with strings. You can check like, hey, is this alphanumeric? Is it a digit? Is it lowercase? And you can do actually one character at a time. You can check. We can't check the whole string, but you can check one character at a time. Sure. I think later on when we get to strings, we'll do some more with that. Expressions. Switch. Okay. Yeah, the switches, they're another way of doing a big chain of if-elses. And they can work pretty nicely here. So let's undo this option here. Do you guys want me to, I'm not going to bother leaving it around here. We'll just revert all of this and go back to our integer choices, because I think that makes life easier. There we go. There. So back as an integer choice. I could rewrite this branch. So this one I'll leave here. So I'm going to do a comment block. Slash star star, is it? Star slash. There we go. Oh, single star. So slash star and star slash is a comment block. Everything in between those will be commented out and ignored. And we're going to rewrite it here. And we're going to rewrite this with what's called a switch. And we're going to switch on the purchase choice. Now a switch gets a set of curly braces. It defines what happens inside the switch. And now switches, instead of this if logic, we have case logic. So we say case, and then what do we want to check? Okay, for case 1, colon, and this is where it's weird, you can put what you want to have happen. Again, I don't like his syntax. I prefer this to be underneath. So I'm going to put it underneath, and then we'll have a case 2. We can see out barbecue chips, very yummy. And then we'll have a case 3, and what we do for a Klondike bar. And then what's cool, right? We could have had a trailing else in our switch statement here, right? Like else cout, we don't sell that. End line. I'm going to do the same thing. So this else case here is the default case. If it doesn't match this, this, or this, we have a default, and we want to cout that. Now, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. There's a bug here. I know. Sometimes I do it for illustration reasons. It's okay. So let's purchase a Klondike bar. what we do for this, we don't sell that. So it matched number 3, but then it also went here. So when you're using a switch, you have to use this obnoxious thing called a break. When you're done with your case, call a break. And you have to do it in every case, except the default. It's not bad to put it in the default, but like the switch finishes, and then we hit the curly brace and we're done, and it's not going to run anything else. So typically, because defaults come at the end, we don't need it. So now let's try it here. Let's see if we can buy some Klondike bars again. Okay, what will you do for this? Looking good so far. Let's try it on the other options just to see. And we can put a breakpoint in. Let's see. I think we put it at switch. See if that works for us. Let's buy that. Yep. Okay, so now we're going to switch on purchase choice. Purchase choice is 2. Let's step. And it jumps right to the next line of code that executes. We don't actually see these evaluate. Case 1, case 2, case 3. We're jumping right to the next line of code that's going to run. So we step barbecue chips and break out. Okay, so we get our barbecue chips. So switches are pretty cool. They can be useful. And I believe we can also switch on strings. Let's double check. String, purchase choice. Oh, no, so we can't do it on strings. We can do it on characters. So if we see in a single character, we can switch on the character 1. And remember, characters use single quotes or apostrophes, not double quotes, because double quotes are for strings. So they are a little bit limited in that case, which is kind of a bummer, but that's okay, not too big of a deal. And you can also switch on this enum type. I'm not going to ask you to use enum types. It's just a way of like having a named list of things, which is pretty fun and all. Maybe we'll get to it later, but it's nothing we need right now particularly. All right, so I'm going to undo that. We're going to leave it as numbers here. Int. So there's the switch syntax, here's the if-else chaining syntax. Whichever one you prefer, perfectly fine. Right, not a big deal. But no, when we were doing our if here, we could check for strings. We could not do that in the switch. So I typically just stay away from switches. That's just a preference of mine. If you like them, go for it. Not a big deal. All right, that's not so bad. So we made it through the if-else making decisions part here. Again, relational operators, greater than, less than or equal to, those sort of things, equals or not equals, how does one relate to another, logical operators, and, or, and not, putting all this together, just a simple if, and if else, and if else if, a if inside of an if, right, those nested levels that you can do. I typically shy away from nested ifs just because it gets confusing easy. Usually like a single nesting level is okay, 2 nesting levels, and okay, you know, we're getting a little hairy there. If you have to go more than that, something's just crazy, and we want to look for a better approach. Just because at that level of like this one's true or this one's not true, and what branch am I in, just gets awkward to read. And I know that's going to be difficult at this point to kind of work around that, but that's what we have. So yeah, that went pretty well. I think before we jump into the next chapter, why don't we take another couple-minute break? You guys can try a couple things. Hopefully you don't need to stretch for quite as long. Try it. Let me know if you're having any trouble. You can shoot me some messages in Discord or something, or even in Twitch chat. It's easier to put screenshots in Discord. Like if you want to give me a screenshot of, hey, it's giving you an error or something you don't expect, let me know. I probably won't do screen sharing until after we're done. But we got 8 o'clock. We'll take about a 10-minute break. We'll go through chapter 5, hopefully ending around 9-ish or so. And then that last hour can be for you guys to actually have that hands-on practice. And then we'll talk about the real first project. Again, Project Zero due tonight is just, can you get something into GitHub and make C++ do Hello World? Because you must always do Hello World anytime you learn a new language. That's a must program all the time. So after that, we'll get into the real stuff, and we'll talk about the next project coming up. And we should be in pretty good shape. So again, let me know if something's not clear, if you've got questions, if if it's not clear for you, it's not clear for someone else, I guarantee it. It's not just you. So your classmates are going to thank you for asking questions if it's not clear and making me say it again and again and again, and I'm happy to. That's why I'm here, right? I mean, sure, you paid money because you need to get the college credit, and if you don't pay money, you don't get college credit, but you also paid to have someone help you learn it, right? Anybody can buy the book and go read the book themselves, right? But I'm here to answer the questions and hopefully give you some additional examples and explanations in ways that might make more sense to you than just reading out of a book or reading some PowerPoint slides or whatever it happens to be. So What's after case 3? Yep, I have my default case. So this is like the trailing else in an if-else statement. It's a default. So if it doesn't match a 1, it doesn't match a 2, it doesn't match a 3, it's the default. And it is optional, just like the ending else case. You kind of have just if, else if, else if, else if. Perfectly legal. If you want a default, you can put a default in. Alright, so when we break till about 8:10 or so, is music okay? Too loud? Too quiet? It's better than silence? Or, I mean, I don't know. I always figure it's better than silence. Dead air is just supposed to be a big no-no, right? But again, I'm trying to take some cues off of you guys, right? It's really your class, so let me know if I need to go back into more examples, do more of something that you missed, or right, go for it. You gotta give me some clues here. Again, it's hard for me to look around and see if you have that glazed look over in your eyes where you've just zoned out because I've gone too fast. No, default case is totally optional. We can get rid of it if we wanted. It'll be perfectly happy. So I'll just put a note, right? Default case is optional. Right, comments are great to put in here too. All right, did you like the electronic track or did you like the game music from earlier? I can do either. The no copyright sound had a couple other playlists as well too. I can take a look at those if you guys have any requests in Spotify. We can poke around. Oh, it's been still running. That's cool. If we just search, how did I find all their stuff? Was it just a search on no content sound? Might have just been a search. That's the electric. I think I found, yeah, the NCS artist. Is that them? That doesn't look right. I don't think that's the right NCS. Playlists. They've got releases, top 50. Well, we can try whatever. All right, I'll just go back to the electronic because it's still playing. So let me crank that volume here. Come back. Alrighty. You guys get a chance to play with any of this? Saw someone join Discord, but no one said they're having any trouble here. If it's going well, we can keep going to the next chapter. And this one will be a lot of fun. So adding in loops will make life a whole lot easier here for us. They'll take a little bit of getting used to if you've never done it before, but I promise they are fantastic. And we'll solve some of those problems about feeling bad about ourselves with all of our duplicated code. So just download this, and I'll throw that up on my other monitor. Yeah, throw it up. I'm surprised no one made that dad joke. Alrighty. Sweet. I have a lot of different tabs open. That's cool. Okay. Maybe everyone's working on those quizzes that are due come tonight. So maybe making quizzes due the night of is a bad idea. Maybe I'll give you another day on those next time, so you don't be doing those while we're having class. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Not muted. Got the project ready. We're good to keep going. Close this one out. So awesome, fantastic. I think we're good with the menu option here and our grading. That's pretty good. All right, so let me start up another project. And well, before I do that, let me commit all this to GitHub, right? So this is our menu with switch and lots of if-else. Cool. All right, so I committed that. That should be out on GitHub again. Once you push, it should be on github.com. If you're ever not sure, just go to repository, view on GitHub, and you can check it there. All right, so chapter 4 examples, chapter 4 menu examples, looking good. In here, we should have that CPP file, and we've got some code. Cool. So that's out there for you guys. Again, I typically don't recommend you do the clone option, just because if you make changes, it's not going to let you sync and pull down the new changes as I keep adding stuff. You could just delete it, I guess, or reclone every time. That's one option. But whatever works best for you. Let me know if you've run into any trouble with these examples too, because I'm happy to mess with that for you. Oh, that's my other window. Okay, we're going to do a new empty project. Make sure it starts in my repository folder. So this is chapter 5. And now we're going to start using something called a loop. And the idea of a loop is it's a repeated process. So Let me add my source file. And I'm just going to go copy paste some of our code here. So let's do this first example. Because this random number guessing game I think will be better. Again, the raw option here in GitHub is going to copy paste much better for you. Otherwise you get a lot of extra spaces. And there's, I guess, nothing wrong with that, but it'll save you a little bit of time. So here's our random number guessing game, right? Just shamelessly copy pasted. Oh, by the way, I should do this to set a good example for you guys. Here's the URL for it. Right, I'm going to copy that URL. I'm going to come to my code and I'm going to say, actually, let me put it at the very top. It doesn't matter too much, but like make it clear. Sourced from, boom. There is my citation. Now I have academic integrity. Right? I'm not engaging in academic dishonesty, turning something in that isn't my own work. I mean, I know this one's mine, but just setting that example. You find something online, cite your source. Just drop a comment. It's not hard to do, I promise. And again, if you're unsure on that, just ask me first. Right? I'm happy to look at it and let you know. Please, doing the paperwork to fail people is miserable, and I don't enjoy doing that sort of paperwork. So just ask, and we'll be okay. All right. Oh, I need another. Somehow I didn't pour myself another cup of coffee yet. Sorry. So I mentioned we've been having trouble with those people stealing the tires off of cars. I've got the Ring alarm system here at my house, so we can have the whole alarm system and the recordings, and when people come up and steal packages and whatnot, we get their pictures. But turns out we had a package thief. My wife had found this really pretty lamp that she wanted for the front room. This gorgeous lamp. It was a real tall one, so it came in a really big box, and it must have been really attractive to somebody. So they stole the package, and of course we had it recorded and everything, so we sent it to the police, and they found the guy. But it turns out the judge only gave him a light sentence. No, that one's not doing anything for you guys either. Sorry, I'm trying here. Yeah. All right, so let's pick it up with some loops here. So I feel bad we had to have this code in here. So let's get rid of all this extra duplicated code. We'll leave that last one, I guess, for now. And we can take a peek and see what's going on here. So what we can do with a loop is the idea, if we want to just let someone guess forever, we can do that. So like the conceptual idea of breaking this down step by step by step, we're going to say, as long as they haven't gotten it right, or while they're still guessing, let them guess, right? Guess a number, go for it. So I'm going to take this first guess here and I'm going to change that. I'm going to put this in a loop. I'm going to say while is my keyword here. And now while gets an expression, just like an if gets an expression. So while still guessing, and then a set of curly braces. Everything inside those curly braces are going to operate in this while loop. I guess we'll just get rid of that for now, because they're just going to keep on guessing here. Guess, 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 guess. Cool. So they're going to guess. If they got it right, they guessed it. If they didn't get it right, guess too high, guess too low. And if they're still guessing, make them guess again. So what you got to be careful about is in a while loop, it's really easy to get an infinite loop. Let me actually do that one first for you here, because that's always a fun example here. I'm going to put a little comment block in, and I'll say an int number equals 1, and while the number does not equal, say 0, we'll do cout number plus plus. Did we cover this little plus plus operator here? I can't remember if we did that or not last week. It's just a shortcut for saying take the number and add 1 to it. Take the number and add 1 to it. And this is the postfix addition. I think postfix. Maybe. I don't remember if that's the right term or not, but after we use the number, add 1 to it. You can also do a pre-addition that way, plus plus a number. It'll add it before we use the number. So I actually want it to happen after, because we're going to get 1 and it will change to 2, and then it's going to come back up. So what happens with a while loop? A while loop is a pre-test loop. So it's possible that a while loop never runs. If this condition is not true, this never runs. If it is true, it runs. And the idea here is it's just going to continue. As soon as it gets to the end of its curly brace, it's going to come back up to the expression and evaluate it again. Yeah, someone told me at one point that ++var is faster actually like operating in the CPU. Okay, sure. Yeah, they had reasons. I'm sure they were smarter than I was, so I believed them. You can learn all sorts of that stuff when you get into compiler theory and optimizations there, and JavaScript developer, yeah, micro optimizations. Oof, JavaScript can be really bad, so do be careful. Do be careful for sure. Okay. Anyway, we're just going to keep on looping, and it's going to run, and it's going to get to the end. It's going to come evaluate. If it's true, runs again. 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 Unsigned negative infinity. I feel like that's a big number. All right, let's try it. Let's see what we get. All right. Still going. What we have here appears to be an infinite loop. So I know, thanks to C++ being stupid, eventually we're going to overflow this when we get over the 2 billion some odd number that fits in an integer, and it's going to look like it turns negative, because it does just terrible things when that happens. But the amount of time it's going to take to count to 2 some odd billion, yeah, that's going to take a while. And actually the funny thing here, the slowest part of this program is outputting it, spitting it out here in the console output. If we didn't have console output, then this would be super fast. So I'm going to hit this break all button here, which is really cool. So if you don't put a breakpoint in, you can use break all, and it should pause your program, and it's going to tell you what line it's on, which is really cool. And I think, yep, I can go and cheat here. So what was that biggest number here? So let's just Google that again. So C++ max int. No, I don't want size. I just want max int. What's the biggest int? Integer limit, Microsoft documentation. This site looks pretty legit. Yeah, my console output's pretty slow. It's definitely not the fastest thing in the world here. So let's grab this int max here. I'm going to go paste that in to the value. And I can change it because I'm fancy like that. Right? And then I'm going to come back and hit continue. And now it's negative. Oh, it didn't even stop. It looks like it's negative, but bad things happen, and now like we're counting down. That's, oh, as long as we're not 0. Good night, Vivi. Love you. Sweet dreams. Okay, so maybe I should have said as long as we're less than 0, or what number is greater than 0. Keep on running. Let's see if we can trick it again. We'll run. Maybe we can make our infinite loop stop here. I'm going to break all, pause, right? Pause the running. Oops, we got to step out a second. Nope. Step. That's not loaded. Oh, geez, that's fine. I don't care. Step, step. Get back to my code. All right, I'll just put a breakpoint in. And then let me step out. Maybe I can get back to here. There we go. Okay, so here's the value. Paste in that really big number again, and we'll step, step. Is number greater than 0? No. All right, we finally finished because we overflowed and did a bad thing, and it looks like it's no longer greater than 0. Okay. If for fun here, right, and just to give you that example, right, I'm going to comment this output line out and save it. I'm just going to hit run. We're going to let it run for a little bit here, and then I'm going to pause it. So we'll say, let's see when it starts. We'll say 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000. It's about 5 seconds or so. Uh-oh. Maybe I didn't count right. Let's continue. Let's let it run a little more. Pause. Oh, my output line was changing number. So we're stuck in the while loop forever, but it's not actually doing anything. My bad. Sorry. So I want number plus plus. There we go. There we go. Let's try that again. Okay, so now we should be changing number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and pause. Let's see. There we go. So number is already up to, wow, what is that? 1.7 billion in about 5 seconds. So E404, I'd like all of the project stuff. if you're using Visual Studio, your solution file, VCX project file, the filters, all of that good stuff. Because if I do need to open it, because when I look at your code, I get really confused, I can just clone your repository, double-click the solution file, and it works well for me. It's a good habit to get into, and it'll make it easier for you to open it. Again, you guys are all working on the same computer. If we were in the classroom and you guys wanted to use the classroom computers, if you commit and push to GitHub, you can clone your GitHub repository on any one of those computers, so from week to week. And that's actually really weird. For some reason, the seat that you sit in the first night of class somehow becomes your assigned seat. And if you deviate from that rule and you sit in someone else's seat, it's awkward. And I don't know why, but that's like kind of the accepted rule here. So everyone always wants to come early the first night of class to pick whatever the good seats they think there are. And some of our seats honestly are terrible because you're like kind of tucked behind that instructor station and it's hard to see the screen. So definitely there are better seats when we do meet in person. So, and I do promise you we'll meet in person someday. You can drop by my office when campus opens and I will have coffee for you. Cheers. It is coffee, by the way. I don't know if you can see that without me spilling it all over. Just still coffee. Ah, delicious. All right, so this is infinite looping. Yeah, hit exclam class, and it'll tell you a little bit about it, Crutch. Crutchcorn. Hey, I'm glad you stumbled through on Twitch and found us. You're welcome to learn some C++. All right, so our infinite loop, right? The slow part there is outputting, but again, do be careful when you write loops that you're going to make sure that this condition here eventually becomes false. Otherwise, we're stuck in an infinite loop. And infinite loops are usually bad because that means we're not accomplishing the task that we want to do. The other terrible thing you can do is you can say while true. I have seen this be useful like in a handful of cases. And sure, this is legitimate code, it will work, but I'm just going to say never do this for now. Later on we can talk about stuff and we'll deal with it. So yeah, you can break out of a loop, but at that point, why is it a loop? Like, if you're going to break and you know what the condition is for breaking, you just throw it in your expression here. So, again, I'm just not fond of this, but you can. So, don't do these infinite loops. Don't try this at home. Actually, it won't break anything, I promise. It's okay. You just tell it to stop whenever you want. It's not going to hurt your computer to add one infinitely. It might waste a little bit of power, but it's not going to hurt anything. Okay, so that was our silly little infinite loop example. Just be careful when you do loops here. Okay, so this is the loop increment. Oh, it comes in this chapter. This is what I get for not actually reading PowerPoint to you guys. The campus he works at. I'm not sure what that means, but that's okay. Oh, another common issue people have, and I've seen it a lot, is they'll put like, we'll do that same number is greater than 0 sort of thing. They'll put a semicolon here. This is legal C++ code. The problem is we have now attached this empty command to the while loop. This will never run. Again, I will always say you should use curly braces. You don't technically have to use curly braces in a while loop if it's a one-liner, just like with an if statement. If it's a one-liner, technically you don't need them. You just always should. So because you're allowed to have one line without curly braces, this will be okay, but nothing happens here. Right, so it's terrible. So just be careful. We get into the habit of putting semicolons everywhere, but we don't need it, and it will actually do bad things. I do recall the second programming class I ever took. I spent, I think it was 2.5 hours trying to figure out why my program wasn't working. And it was because I had a semicolon at the end of my while loop. And I couldn't understand why I was debugging, and it would just go nowhere. It would just be stuck. Oh, yes, you can ask all the obnoxious computer science questions you want, but I might just ignore them if they're not on topic. Yes, that pause or break all command in Visual Studio is fantastic. I mean, trolling live streams definitely has a strong tradition in Twitch. So a certain amount of trolling is to be expected and celebrated, I think. Especially if you're an on-topic troll, like that's skill at that point, to troll people with on-topic questions and whatnot. So, you know, I'm all for it. Again, if you're new here, you can check out !TKF for the Knowledge Fellowship. That's how I kind of got started with this live streaming my classes, just sharing the knowledge. So it's been going well, and TKF, like the T. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Professor. Check out some other people. Lots of people know some good stuff, and they just like sharing their knowledge, which is fantastic. I happen to get paid to do it because, right, I'm teaching a college class, but why not let other people drop in? And if you've got on-topic questions, I'm sure my students have similar questions as well. So, oh, and I was saying, I've heard some bad stories of Zoom classes, so I've opted not to use Zoom because it just has its own set of difficulties. And I'm sure it wouldn't be terrible and we could manage, but I don't need to see everybody's webcam and, you know, see where you're sitting at your house or wherever you're doing. So I like this particular format. And then I think if we can actually get a little bit of a community going, you can talk with each other and, you know, hang out on Discord and answer each other's questions, and that's pretty fantastic. So that's like the stretch goal, to get that community going. So, all right. So don't put semicolons there; those will be bad. Make sure that this condition will eventually become false, so that the loop will stop. That's what we have to be careful with here. So I'll probably comment that out, actually. So I'll put my comment block here, and then we're going to come back to our guessing game, because this is what we really wanted to do with our loop here. We wanted to not have the same bunch of code 5 times, or 6 times, or 7 times, whatever it is, because we would feel bad about ourselves. So we said, hey, as long as we're still guessing, as long as this is true, let's keep guessing. And we do have the possibility here that still guessing will become false, right? Somewhere in our code, inside this while loop, my expression here can be set to false, right? So in our case, we're just using that Boolean flag. It could be, is it greater than this? Is it equal to this? Whatever. We'll go over a couple options here of how we can use loops to control that sort of stuff. In our case, we just have a single flag. And you know what? It might be fun, too, to count the number of guesses. So let's have an integer number of guesses. And then you could start it at 1. You could start it at 0. I'm going to start it at 0 because immediately what I'm going to do is the very first thing is I'm going to increment when it starts. So like starts off at 0, but now when the loop starts, it goes from 0 to 1. Right? If you start it at 1, you'll have to do it at the bottom, that sort of thing, and you can get confused easily. So sure. And then we're also going to tell them how many guesses it took, right? So it took you, and we'll just add that in there, right? Just keep using these arrows for C-outing. Number of guesses. Remember, if you're doing output and you're just smushing them in on the same line, make sure you leave spaces, right? Just adding more stuff to the output doesn't give you any spaces by default. So like, give yourself some white space there. Okay, so that'll work. Someone had mentioned using break. We looked at that break keyword when we did switches. Break will stop a loop. I'm not a fan of break. There's nothing wrong with it. Again, it's more of just a style preference that if I know how to stop the loop, I'm just going to put it in the expression. Right? So we're just going to keep going until that becomes false. And let's try it. Okay, let's see if we can guess a number. This might be fun. As much fun as guessing numbers is, I guess. Yeah, and before I talked about, I'm actually not a big fan of switches either. So, but you need them for switches. So you know, I swallow my disgruntledness and use them. All right, so 50 was too low. 75, split the difference. Didn't tell me too high or too low. That's weird. Oh, we have our input in here twice. That's my problem. This if still guessing. I had left this in from when we had those repetitions, right, each time. So I don't need this chunk of code. So, right, we found a bug. Let's get rid of that. Because if it doesn't match, it's not too high, it's not too low. Right, we'll do that. And then if it did match, still guessing will be false. So we'll get to the end of this loop. We'll get to this last curly brace here for the while. And it's going to evaluate. If it's true, it's going to come back here again. If not, then we're just done. All right, let's try again. So we'll do 50, too high, 25, too low, somewhere in the middle, like 37. That's too high, so I don't know, what, 28? No, 30? 31. That's too high. All right, so between 25 and 31, 27, too high, so it's got to be 26. All right, it took 6 guesses. Is that right? Guess 1, guess 2, guess 3, guess 4, guess 5, guess 6. It seemed to have counted correctly. Awesome. Let's try it again for fun. Let's see. Run. Come on, run. Okay, there we go. All right, 50. That's the first guess, second guess, third guess, fourth guess, fifth guess. 53. All right, we got it. So in this case, we just keep playing over and over and over and over and over and over again. All right. Still not the most interesting thing in the world, but what if we ask the user how high they wanted to guess up to, right? We could leave it up to them, and if you want to guess from 1 to 10, because you're not really into this sort of thing and you think it's a stupid game, sure, you can guess really easy. If you want to guess 1 to 1,000,000, sure, it'll be a little harder, right? So why don't we ask them? So we'll see out, how high of a number do you to guess up to? Or something like that, right? I mean, anything that makes sense. Again, I'm not super Englishy with the making sense, so just whatever's going to work for you. All right, and then we can have a integer value for max number, and then we can see in the max number, right? We'll figure that out, get what it is. So now that I have a max number, I can use that when I do my modulus. So instead of mod 100, I'm going to take this big old random something and mod it by the max. Again, so I'll get 0 up to, but not including that, because it's a remainder, and then I'll just add 1, so it's 1 to that. So now instead of saying 1 to 100, right, I'm going to say 1 to max number. And again, just be careful with your spacing here. Like, I want it to show 1 dash the number without spaces, and then I want the colon because I'm telling them to guess. Just whatever style you like is perfectly fine. As long as it works, you're going to get points. Some of this stuff just bothers me because I have OCD. Maybe not officially, but like the stuff irritates me. So I'll take the time to fix it and make it look at least a little prettier. All right, so how high should we guess, folks? Should we make it easy, make it hard? $102. Okay. Guess a number between 1 and 102. So 51's our middle there. Too high. So like 26, still too high. How about like 14? Still too high. 7. 7's too high. Okay, 3. All right, we got it. 5 guesses it took. That was not too bad of a game. All right, well, what if now I wanted to not have to hit stop and go again? I could put all of this inside of another loop, right? So I can have a char for like play again, and I'm going to start it at Y here, because I'm going to assume you want to play again. Or what I'm actually doing here is I want this while loop to run. Right, so as long as your play again is equal to Y, boom, grab all this, put in my curly brace, and notice it tabs it in for me. Visual Studio is fantastic. I love the tool. It's a little slow, but I love it. So as long as we're going to play again, right? Good, we're great. Now, I've got a problem though. I have an infinite loop. Right? Remember I said don't have infinite loops. Make sure that this expression can eventually become false. So I forgot to ask them if they want to play again. Right? When the while guessing loop is done here, again, follow your little dashed line down. Let's ask them. See out. Do you want to play again? And then again, you know, a y/n, let them know, yes or no, that sort of thing. And then we can see in on play again. Play again. Oh, what is it here? There's play again. Dot. Oh, I'm forgetting. There's upper. There we go. So one of the things you can do, right, when you're dealing with characters, you can change it to uppercase or to lowercase to make life easy. Again, the idea of I could have play again equals lowercase or play again equals the uppercase Y. Sure, this works too. But either way, whatever approach you want to take is perfectly fine. I'm more fond of changing the user's input than I am checking all their possible ones. So I'm actually going to say my play again equals to lower play again. And this is really crazy looking thing here. Behind the scenes, set a variable to a cin. Like you use cin to set variables. So it's always the cin arrow towards the variable you're trying to get from input. You want like a variable that you can use that will then ask them to do a cin, essentially. We can do that sort of thing when we get to functions in the book. We're not there yet, but I think I know where you're coming from, and that would be helpful, right? Probably more advanced than we need at the moment. So just be careful. To lower, I am pretty sure you can sort of see here in this really tiny font. It says int something or other, to lower, int something. So that it says that it starts with int is telling me it's going to return a value. And usually if things return a value, you want to save it somewhere. Right? So, or the other thing I could do is I could just use to lower up here, right in line. So it'll give me the value, I can compare it there. I don't need to actually go change it again. That's probably cleaner, I like that. So this is just to make sure to lower it. I don't need to check against uppercase Y. Does that make sense? Right, so just either way you want to do it, perfectly fine. I don't really think it makes a big deal one way or the other in terms of performance. But this way I know I don't have to check the uppercase because I'm forcing this to be lowercase. So we'll ask them, right? Do you want to play again? Yes or no? And essentially anything other than a yes or a Y is a no, right? So that works out pretty well in our favor. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. Let's see how well that works. Again, write some code and try it. Write some code and try it. So let's guess like from 1 to 10. All right, 5, 3, 2, 1. Hey, we guessed it. You want to play again? Yes. How high of a number? This time let's do like 1,000. All right, 500. Too high. 250. Too high. 125. Too low. I don't want to do the math in my head. 200. 150. Too high. 130. Too low. 140. Too low. 145. Too high. 142. Too low. 143. Yes! 10 guesses. We got it. You want to play again? No. That's boring. I mean, maybe, yeah, it's boring. Let's be honest. But, you know, it should feel good that we got this thing working. So we've got some loops. We got nested loops. And we want to make sure that it does the things we expect it to do. Again, sort of build your program little chunk by little chunk by little chunk. Little bit by little bit by little bit, which is awesome. Yeah, guess a random number live stream. You know, if I had more time, like I would love to do like fun Twitch integrations, and you know, other people do much better job streaming and you know take it seriously because they maybe want to make some money off of it or something. That's probably why I'm not investing very much into like trying to do custom integrations and commands and whatnot. But you know, maybe someday. That's a stretch goal, perhaps. So, and just the fun story, I used to live stream my classes before the pandemic forced all of our classes remote because I thought it was cool and anyone could join in. And then I had a recording for any students who wanted my lecture recorded because I drink coffee nonstop and talk fast. And they said, hey, could you record it for me? So I was like, hey, let's do this on Twitch because I like Twitch. I definitely hang out on other people's channels and consume their content. So maybe it's just giving back to the community. Okay, so while loops, pretest loops, the exit condition, right, what makes that false. There's lots of things you can go wrong in loops, some common errors. You can take a look at that, see what's going on. Ooh, this one's a really nice one, an input validation loop. This is pretty cool. So let's, I don't know, let's start a new project. So why not? Because we can have as many projects as we want. Projects are free. This is infinite guessing game. Right, loop all you want. And again, GitHub is tracking. You can always go back to this history here. At the line level, what has changed? Red means it was removed. Green means it was added. So you can see the differences in my code line by line by line inside of GitHub, which is really cool. So commit and then push. Make sure you're pushing. Push, 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 push. All right, commit and push. We're good. So I'm going to start up another project now. New project. An empty project. Well, this one we'll call Chapter 5 Input Validation. Loops can be really helpful for checking if input is valid or not. So I'm going to go back to our code examples we had before. And let's see. This one was the guessing game. We don't want that one. we want the other chapter 4 example. We did that, say the menu option here, right? One of the things we did was ask, hey, what do you want to buy? Right, so I'm going to go to raw, copy paste everything, right? Control A, select all, Control C for copy, come back here, add a source file, source is fine, Control V for paste, great. I'm going to get rid of the grading thing here because that was only so interesting. Okay, but what we had here now, again, we had the switch. I'm going to get rid of the switch because I prefer these if-else's, but that's just me. No big deal there. Whichever you prefer is fine. And then a buy more, we'll fix it up in a minute. All right, so we were telling them, hey, welcome to the shop. Do you want to buy something? And we inputted their purchase choice. Right, what I want to do now is, I'm actually going to say, start this off at 0, an invalid number. And there's 2 ways of doing it. I prefer this way. The other way is perfectly fine as well. Whichever style you like, I'm good with. We're going to say while purchase choice is less than 1, or purchase choice is more than 3. Again, you could say less than or equal to 0, or greater than or equal to 4. You could use the greater than, whichever one you use is perfectly fine. But the idea is, if it's this, if either one of those is true, it's not a 1, 2, or 3. And that takes a little bit of thinking through, right? We're combining those logical expressions with a logical operator of or. If this is true, or this is true, hey, I got to ask them, what do they want to buy? Right? Input, get a number. Okay? Pick the number. Great. And I'm actually going to put the menu inside of here. So that way, if they give me a number that is not a 1, 2, or 3, my while loop expression is going to evaluate. It's going to say, hey, is that a 1, 2, or 3? If it's less than 1 or greater than 3, it's going to spit them right back into the loop, right? Keep them in it. So you are not allowed out of my input validation loop until you give me a 1, a 2, or a 3. Does that make sense? How we're going to use this loop to force them to give me a 1, 2, or 3. Again, I know they could type in like a letter or some other things that would crash our program. Crashing is sad. Yeah, I don't know. I prefer if else's. And at this point, we don't sell that else, right? Because I know they only gave me a 1, 2, or 3 if I got out of this loop. Okay, so this is an input validation loop, right? I set the parameters of what makes a valid input, and I keep them inside the loop as long as they're giving me something that's not valid. All right, so you got to just be a little careful with your checks here. So this is checking for out of bounds one direction or out of bounds the other direction. Okay. Another way of doing this, and I've seen people and they like it, which is perfectly fine, but I'm just not a fan. They say while not purchase choice is greater than or equal to 1 and purchase choice is less than or equal to 3 inside of parentheses, and then they not the whole thing. Because what they're saying here is this is the valid condition. If you are greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 3, you are valid. And then I'm going to reverse it with a not and say, well, you're not valid. Stay inside the loop. A CN for the letter A. I'm not sure what that means, Blowfish. Like if you try and see into you have to see into a variable. You can't see into a character. Like A just doesn't. It's not going to work because you can't store something here. Yeah, if you enter letters here and it's expecting numbers when I'm CNing as an integer, it's going to crash. Bad news bears. Again, we're not to the point where we can fix that. When we get to, where is it here? I don't have all these chapters memorized. I'm sorry. Yeah, if you type an A, it's just going to crash because it's not an integer. It won't convert. Let's see. I think it's near the second to last week. Not the kind of thing I keep on the top of my head. That's why it's all written down here. Yeah, exceptions here. When we cover exceptions in chapter 16, we'll learn the right way to deal with this sort of stuff. Okay? For now, we're just sort of hand waving and saying, I trust users to give me valid input. That's a terrible thing to do because users are stupid. I mean, not stupid. I mean, users will give us all sorts of crazy things that they have no reason to expect would not work. Users are not programmers. They don't think like programmers. They don't think like I understand what a computer is going to take or not take. So don't set your expectations so high for users to always give you good input. So there's a practice called defensive coding, which is fantastic. I'm a big fan of it, where you're being extra careful, being defensive about the things you take from users, because users are bad. Bad's the wrong word, but users will give you bad things. Just some people deliberately because they're malicious, some people by just negligence because they weren't really paying attention, or whatever it happens to be, right? Or in our case, we had a web client product that had a login page, and one of the things we do as a good security practice is if you try and log in too many times, it locks your account out, right? And we actually had some alerts going on. If too many accounts get locked out at one time, we set off some alerts, and our security team gets involved and is like, what's going on? Is someone trying to break into our website? Yada, yada, yada. We got an alert one time that someone tried to log in 1,000 times and failed. Their cat had sat on the enter key on their keyboard and just sat there, and they were locked out, but we kept getting these alerts like this user keeps failing to log in. The poor person actually got their computer re-imaged, or their laptop, whatever it happened to be, because they didn't realize their cat had sat on it, and their security team was like, oh crap, maybe they have some malware, re-image the computer. So again, defensive coding, just have some good habits here, we'll be okay, but it just makes for a funny story. Cat on the keyboard. All right, so again, if you like this, if this is valid, not valid, perfectly fine, but notice this one is an and, because we're saying valid is greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 3. I'm okay with this, but to me this is more confusing. Again, if it makes sense to you, perfectly fine. I don't really care. Just a weird way that you can use those logical operators to get the exact same result, but approach it from a different direction. Right? So my choice here is saying, hey, if it's invalid this direction or it's invalid this direction, stay in the loop. This one's saying, hey, if it is valid, not. Just reverse it. Not valid at that point. So again, whichever you prefer, I don't really care. Both should work okay. All right, so let's see if this is going to work. And then actually we're going to have buy more. Here, let's just do that as a char again. And then we can compare it to a single. So the problem with a string is it's hard to convert a single string character. You can get single characters out of a string. We'll look at more of that stuff later when we do more with strings, but it's a little bit awkward. So we're just going to cancel that here. I'm going to have the buy more, and we'll put that up here. So we'll say buy more, and we're going to start this off at y, right? I'm going to start it at a value which will trigger my loop to run, because while loops are pretest loops. If it's not true when we start, buy more equals a y. And again, I want to do this to lower thing. So we're going to do to lower buy more. So as long as buy more as a lowercase letter is equal, great. Right? We'll ask them what they want. Sorry, I've got all sorts of white space here. Get rid of some of that stuff. Okay. Start purchase choice off. And I want to start it as invalid because otherwise the while loop will never run. Right? So start it as something that will trigger the loop to run. The loop runs, you can input, and then I'll figure this all out here. And then you want to buy more, great, we'll keep them in the loop. And so, all right, we'll see if this works. Then we'll add another feature because we can do some cool stuff with this. And I know we're getting close to 9 o'clock. I'm trying to keep an eye on the clock here. So let's give them an invalid input. It just keeps spitting the menu out. Again, you can put some sort of message in, and that's where it gets a little bit trickier. Like maybe you put the menu the first time, and then if it's invalid in your loop, you say that's not a valid choice. Give them some better directions. I love it. Again, I'm just not into that amount of effort, right? So you don't really gain a whole lot out of it. So we'll give them a valid choice. Yummy barbecue chips. Do we want to buy more? Sure. Enjoy your chocolate chip muffin. Buy more. Klondike bar. And we'll say no, and we're done with our loop finally. Okay. So the other thing we can do with this, right, because this is like a menu, we're picking, we're buying snacks here, I'm going to have a double for total purchase price. I'm going to start this guy off at 0. Okay? And again, I don't want to use an integer because I said some of this stuff costs some cents, right? They're not whole dollar purchases. If everything was a whole dollar purchase, we could use an int and life would be good. If you have to deal with sales tax, again, you probably don't want to use integers. But the amount of reality we're trying to model here, it's up to us. We're just doing some examples for fun, right? If you're writing your own point of sale system, yeah, make sure you do it right, because if you screw up taxes, then it's bad news bears. So don't screw up taxes. And again, don't even use C++ for doing arithmetic with doubles because it's bad at it. Right? I'll show you if we ever want to calculate taxes later how it miscalculates very quickly. Although we can usually round to take advantage of that, but that's a whole other story. Okay, so I got it to purchase price, and now I can add in, hey, if I bought a chocolate chip muffin, I'm going to take my purchase price, total purchase price, plus equals 1. Right, if I bought barbecue chips, we said those were $1.50 plus equals 1.5. If I bought a Klondike bar, we said that was $2 plus equals 2. Right, we're going to keep the running total of purchases here. When we're done, right, when we're done with the buy more loop, we have finished everything, we can see out your total, I don't know what, due or something, or you owe us, I don't know, your total due is $, right, and then we can do total purchase price and an end line. Right, let's try this and see if we can keep this going. Now, there's a technical term for this total purchase price. We'll call this an accumulator. Right, as the loop is running, we're accumulating to this value. We're just adding up. Right, loop is going, we're adding. Loop is going, we're adding. We're adding. We're adding. We're adding. Every time you buy something, we're accumulating that total. Okay, so it's an accumulator. Uh-oh, build errors. I messed it up. Missing a semicolon. Uh-oh. How did I miss a semicolon? I think that was there before, wasn't it? I don't know. Stuff happens. That's okay. I deleted it. Oh, Space, I'm way too far behind you. I'm sorry. I was not watching your keen eye there. My apologies. You get a bonus point. But disclaimer, bonus points aren't worth anything. All right, so let's buy a muffin. Yeah, let's buy more. Let's buy a potato chip. Yeah, let's buy more. Let's buy a Klondike bar, and I'm all done. $4.50. Awesome. Cool, that seemed to have worked. Now, if you are a little bit annoyed with this menu, I like you. Right? Having to hit yes, I want to buy more every single time is really obnoxious. So what I can do is I can say cout. I'm going to add a fourth option. All done, or checkout, right? Go to checkout. Oops, that end line should not be inside that quote. Right, so if you give me a 4, now I do need to change a couple things now, because now 4 is a valid option here. Now I don't need to use this buy more, right? I can say, while my purchase choice does not equal 4. Oh, now it's yelling at me. It says it's undefined. If you try and use a value before you've declared it, it's going to be upset with you. So I'm going to move this purchase price outside the loop up to here, start it at something that makes this true. 0 does not equal 4. Correct. We're good. Now we're going to loop, right? You give me 1, 2, 3, or 4 here, and now I don't need this buy more. Right? Now my loop is, hey, if you haven't told me you want option 4, if you haven't wanted to quit, great. So let's try that. So now my menu should be a little bit more friendly. Again, it's console input. I get that it's not friendly and people aren't really going to use console applications at all, but that's okay. Let's just pretend. Uh-oh. I have an infinite loop. I changed something. Right? The code I deleted was asking them to change their purchase choice again. Purchase choice. We never... stop. We never changed it. Right, so I only got it once. It is not 4, and we're never changing it again. Right, so I'm going to do this again here, and I'm going to put it at the end. And again, this is where it gets a little bit awkward, and that's okay if it feels a little funny here. So at the end of my loop, and I do feel bad I copy-pasted, but again, I'll feel a little bit bad about it, and I'll show you a better way later. We just aren't there yet. So the initial run here, as long as it's not valid, it's going to start me in the loop, which is great. So I give it an initial value that's not valid. It asks me, keeps me there until I give it a value that it likes. Then I check, okay, was it a 1, 2, or 3? You checked for money. Now I can ask them again. Oh, well, I don't want to do that if they gave me a 4. That's kind of a bummer. So sure, we can say else if purchase choice does not equal 4. Let's do this. again, it's a little bit ugly, I admit, having to have it inside of another check here, because that's the while loop here. This might be a good place for break, right? We could say, hey, if it equals 4, we could just break out of the loop. That could be an option. We could say else if purchase choice equals 4, break. And what break does is it will end the while loop. Right? So I don't know, to me it feels awkward to not let this condition end the loop, but it's really just a weirdness about me. This is perfectly fine if you want to say, hey, if you give me 4 break, stop. I'm all done. Right? And probably it's even cleaner than this. So let's just go for that, because I don't want to have to repeat my code here. So break will stop the loop. Loop. All right. So it should stop the loop. Okay, let's try it. Okay, we'll buy a chocolate chip muffin. Oh dear. Still not changing my input. I forgot. I'm supposed to change the input. Right. Oh dear. All right, we could just put this out here then. I'll copy it, sure. We'll put it here. So we'll ask them if it's invalid, we'll ask them again and keep it there. That way, every time the loop stops, we'll come back and do it. All right, I'm feeling a little bit bad for the repeated code, but again, it can be a little awkward. So you have to pick where you're going to put it, and that's okay. So chocolate chip muffins, great. Enjoy it. Barbecue chips, great. Klondike bar, great. And go to checkout. Total due is $4.50. Awesome. If we wanted, we could even have the running total display, right? And inside this loop here, while our purchase choice is not 4, we could tell them, right? You see out, your current total due. Your current total is, I don't even know if you need the word due, right? So we'll tell them when we're done, and then I'm not going to need it at the end. Again, so a lot of it's a little bit of this art of, where do you think this works and where do you think it's prettiest? Well, maybe it's nice to have at the end, because I told them total, they told me to check out, and I didn't remind them what their cost was again, so maybe I'll put it back in. The other thing we could do then, right, we could actually be a cashier station. Right, so we could say, see out, how much cash do you give the cashier? And we can end that. And now what we can do too, right, we can have a double for cash in or cash given, right? We can see in cash given. Maybe now we need another validation loop, right? We can say while cash given is less than total purchase price, we can tell them that's not enough money to cover your bill, something, right? And then, how much money do you give the cashier? Let's come over here, maybe. I don't need to define cash in again, so I'm actually going to move that up 1. Again, it doesn't really matter where I put it, as long as I'm doing it before the CN, it's fine. All right, now, sure, I'll just leave it. All right, so as long as they give me something that's less, I'm going to keep asking them, that's not enough. How much are you going to give me? How much are you going to give me? How much are you going to give me? Once this is no longer true, right, that I either equal the purchase price or I'm greater than, I can now tell them their change, right? So we'll see out your change, or thanks for shopping. Your change is, and then we can do that arithmetic, right? We'll take total purchase, cash given minus the total purchase. Right? And again, I want to force that order of operations just to be clear that I want it to happen. Right? It should work out perfectly fine, but just to solidify in my head, yes, I want this subtraction to happen first. And that's getting long. I had to scroll, so I'm going to just boop it down a line. Right? The white space doesn't matter, and as long as it's tabbed in, I can see that it kind of belongs to this line. We're okay. Don't put it here. If it's at the same indentation level, it looks like it's its own statement. And it's not, so at least tab it in once, and you should be fine. Right? So we can calculate their change. Fantastic. Right, so let's buy 1, 2, 3. Let's buy some more stuff. Current total, sure. Buy a bunch of stuff. Go to checkout. Total due is $10.50. Let's give the cashier 5. That's not enough money. Give him 10. Still not enough money. Let's give him 100. All right, our change is $89.50. I think the arithmetic worked out. Oh, I missed a $sign. Feeling a little bad about that. We can go fix that. Right, $sign, sure. But now we have a nice little looping menu. Right, we do some input validation here. We do some more input validation over here. Right, making sure we have a valid number here that we're going to accept. So we can use loops in lots of different ways, which are awesome, right? We can just keep the game going as long as we want to play. We can validate input. We can, more examples in the text, right? This is what I got going on right now. So let's see, increments, prefix, postfix, yep. Counters in the loop. Oh, so with our guessing game, if we wanted to, we could also give them a max number of guesses, right? We could have controlled that in the loop. Right, well, saying like, hey, the number of guesses is less than 10 or something, and they lose after a certain number, right? That should be fine. That's okay. Other interesting loops, and again, you can read this in the text here. I'm a fan of loops with a sentinel value. So sometimes, especially when you're using an accumulator, you might say, hey, enter all of your receipts, and I'll total up how much should be in your cash register at the end of the day. And you don't know when to stop, because you just have a stack of receipts. So what you do is the same sort of thing. Like 4 is the sentinel value for us. It says go to checkout, stop the loop. Now in that sort of case, what you would use as a sentinel value is something you don't expect. For like receipts, you probably don't expect a negative value on your receipt. Maybe you have returns and that sort of thing screws it up, but we can pretend negative wouldn't exist, or 0. Maybe there's no 0 receipts. You pick a value that you don't expect to have happen, and you use that to stop your loop, like we did here for our menu. Go to checkout. That's our sentinel value, is the number 4. Right, another kind of loop you can use, I'm again not a fan of them, just as a personal preference, is a do-while loop. And what's cool about a do-while loop is that it is a post-test loop. So a do loop will always run at least once, because it will do it, and then it will keep on doing it while your condition is true. And what I hate about them, so let's say, I don't know, should I leave this project alone? Let me leave this one alone. So this was our looping menu and input validation. Cool. I'll commit and push that one. We'll do a do loop, and then I'll probably finish up for the night. I know it's a little after 9, sorry. I promise I try and end close to then, but we're almost done. We're doing good. So this is a chapter 5 do. So a do loop will always run at least once, right? And then the while condition will be checked. So it's a post-check, post-test loop. Oh, I don't have to get all that. I'm just going to go back to the raw, copy paste, right? So I don't have to do all the header stuff, and we'll take it all out here. So I don't know, we'll have like an int number is, oh sure, we'll just declare a number, and then we'll say do, and you use these curly braces, cout, enter a number, and then we can see a number. And then we're going to do this while number does not equal 42. And what really upsets me the most about this, I think is why I probably hate them, is that in this case, you do put a semicolon after the while. This drives me nuts. I have no idea why this was the design choice. And that's probably why I hate do loops. But this will run at least once, and then it will check if this is not, if this is true, it will keep running. Keep looping, keep looping, keep looping, as long as it's true. So do will always run at least once. Right, that's the post-test. So the while condition is at the end instead of the beginning, where our while loops might never run ever because they're pre-test, pre-check. If this was not true, it would never run as a while loop. Right? So we'll just keep asking for numbers over and over and over and over and over until they give me the secret number. yada, yada, yada. I'm not even like guessing here at all, right? And eventually it stops. I give it a 42 and it stopped. Not super exciting. But do loops can be cool. You can do some interesting stuff with them. They can be useful for menus as well. It covers the to lower to upper. The last loop. All right, we got time. We got time for one more loop. All right, so if you've programmed before, hopefully you're familiar with the for loop. If you're new to programming, this will be one of the most common loops you're going to use. So a for loop is super helpful because we will typically use these when we have a set number of iterations. If I know how many times I want to run this loop, then I'm going to go do something with it. So a for loop has 3 things inside of this set of parentheses, and a lot of people new to coding hate them because of that. But that's okay. So the first thing we do is we initialize. So I'm going to say, hey, an int count equals 0. So I'm going to declare and initialize a value. Then I'm going to give it the expression. So this is the part that's similar to the while. As long as this middle section is true, so while count is less than, say, 10, the loop will run. Then we add an explicit increment or operator or some function, and typically we'll just do a count plus plus. We'll say, hey, run plus plus. So what we get with this for loop, it's the exact same thing as a while count is less than 10, something, 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 and the last line would be count plus plus. Why is it unhappy with that? Oh, because I didn't declare count. So you can declare things outside as well, or you can declare them right in. Usually I'll declare them inside the loop, but because I'm using it again here I'll change that. So this is int another count equals 0, and we'll do it here, just so we don't repeat it here. So you can declare inside, or you can declare it outside. Either one's perfectly fine. So this for loop is the same thing as this, right? Here's the initializing from the first section here. Here's the condition right here, and then here's the update to that. Usually when you're doing for loops, you don't ever want to touch this value inside the loop because you're going to get confused. Where in a while loop, I said you have to touch it to make sure it's going to make this thing false eventually. Usually we'll just do that right inside the loop here because I know, hey, it's going to run 10 times. Go for it. That sort of thing. And I can just, sure, I know this is going to run 10 times. We'll do this, and then when it's, after we've run it 10 times, our loop will stop. And usually we start at 0, we go to less than. You're welcome to start at 1 and go to less than or equal to, whatever makes more sense for you. But starting at 0 is going to be easier when we get into some more advanced stuff. I still have this up. When we get into arrays and vectors, we're going to want to be starting with 0 every time. So if you just start getting into the habit of always using 0, you should be in good shape. So that's a for loop. We can do a bunch of things. We'll just see out. I have run count times and an end line. So I guess it's going to say 0 the first time, so maybe we'll say count plus 1. So we're not changing the value of count, but we're saying count plus 1 to the value. Again, just for silliness. And again, here we'll do that with another count. Run another count plus 1 times, sure. And we'll see what our loops do. So a do loop, a for loop, a while loop. For loops are also pretest loops. Here we go. So the do loop, I'm sorry, the for loop runs 10 times, and then the while loop runs 10 times. Let's see out. I'm a for loop. And then this one will do see out. I'm a while loop. So almost always interchangeable, or at least in the fact that a for loop could always be a while loop. You don't always have the ability to make a while loop into a for loop, at least in a way that makes sense. The weird thing is, like, this first and second even is optional. Like, you could just have 2 semicolons in here, and that's okay. I don't recommend that again ever, though. It just gets confusing. So typically for loops are great for if we know how many times we're going to do something. While loops are great for other cases, or if you just prefer them. Right? Either syntax is perfectly fine. Modifying, great. You can put loops inside of loops. That's when it starts to get a little crazy and hurt your head. Looping inside nested loops, they're okay, they're great, but they have certain cases, right, when you're going to do whatever you need. Now, we have gotten through most of the loop slides, but if you look here, we actually have, wait a second, what just happened here? Is there more? I'm so confused. All right, hang on a second. I am feeling dumb at the moment. I really thought this was just about loops, and they put file IO here. Oh my goodness. Let me grab my book. Looping. All right, it has like one section on files. Let's ignore that for now. We're going to get to more file IO stuff later. So feel free to ignore all the file IO things. I won't ask you questions about it for the quiz. So that was just confusing. I'm sorry. There's like one section. I just literally ignored it. So don't worry about the files. That's all good. So that's loops. Awesome. You guys did pretty good. Okay. So let me commit and push this. This is just more loop examples. Commit and push. So we got all this code out there. You guys can review, take a look at it anytime you want. And I promise you I'd talk to you about project 1. Here we go. So I'm going to go to assignments and make a new project. I'll put it all in here. Yeah, good. So a new assignment. This is project 1. So this is going to be due in 2 weeks before class starts, because I'd like to go over the solution in class. I've typically gotten good feedback from students if I go over a solution to the problem that they like seeing how I approach solving it. So I think it's definitely well worth the time to go about doing that. And you can see your approach would work perfectly fine, but I might approach it a different way. And that's okay. That's one of the interesting things about coding. It's not just a pure science. There's definitely some art to it, into how we break the problem down and what steps we're going to take. Okay? So, and the score is choose from, have this set up for project 1. Yeah, project 1, awesome. I'll add a rubric for you later. I have to get to all that, but so please submit to your source CPP file in your private GitHub repository. Okay, sorry, that's a little small. I can zoom a little bit. Is that any better? So you can see some of that. Okay, cool. So we're going to have a fun, fun might not be the right word for it, a fun exercise in building one of these applications that uses some loops, uses some input validation, does some sort of stuff. And it will be practical because we are going to build an income tax calculator. I always enjoy this assignment because a lot of people don't actually know much about income tax brackets. So here's one website. You can get it right from the IRS too. I like how they show it here. And this is how federal income taxes work. There are other taxes that you pay. You also pay federal tax for Social Security and Medicare that are not included in this. You'll pay a state income tax, at least in the state of Michigan, and you'll pay sales tax, and you'll pay property taxes, and all sorts of stuff. So we're just focused on this portion here, and it's a significant portion, but it all adds up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask the user to enter some information for us, and we're going to calculate their total taxes owed at each bracket. And this is the part people usually make mistakes, and they don't necessarily understand how this works. And I'm a firm believer in the fact that it's complicated on purpose, just to make people not want to pay attention to it. But again, that's maybe I'm a little bit of a weird conspiracy theorist that, you know, the government's out to get our money. But okay, sure. All right, so in an overly simplified version, and again, I'm not a tax professional, don't use this to actually do your taxes. We're building a tax, create a federal income tax. I'll call it an estimator, again, because it's giving them an estimate, right? So we need to ask the user for their income, and we're going to keep looping, allowing them to enter additional incomes from right, or these, you know, as a note, it comes from typically your W-2 forms. Most direct employment jobs will give you a W-2 form at the end of the year saying this is your total earnings payroll for the year, and this is how much taxes we've currently withheld and that sort of thing, and use that when you file your taxes. But if you ever work more than one place, you'll have more than one W-2 form. Thanks for making me not feel so crazy, E404. So we're going to keep looping, right, until they give me something that means they're done. Again, lots of different ways to approach it. Maybe a sentinel value is probably useful here, right? You probably don't have a W-2 that says you earned $0. Face. So I'm not that crazy that I think taxes are worthless, right? We're definitely contributing to the operations of our country and that sort of thing, but yeah. So ask them for their income. So this, the total is the gross income. Again, it's an oversimplification. Don't worry too much. And then we're going to do the same thing, or slightly different. We're going to ask the user if they want the standard deduction. We should capitalize that, right? The standard deduction, or if they want to itemize. Now, this is another fun process. The federal government, using the power of taxation, has several incentives, and they can incentivize your behavior by giving you deductions in your taxes, or essentially giving you money back. So it's not giving you money, right? It's giving you back some of the money that you already gave them. They're reducing your taxes. There are a few things here and there that they'll actually give you money for. Those are tax credits. These are just deductions. It means I pay less taxes for these sorts of things. And that's a whole other tax policy story. It's all sorts of fun. So the standard deduction is, if you're single, you take $12,400 off your gross income, and now you have what we'll call the adjusted gross income. If you're married filing joint, it's $24,800. It's double, right? Because you're two people. I don't care which brackets you use. If you use the single brackets, great. If you use the married brackets, great. Whichever you prefer, I don't care. Whichever one you want. So I'll do the married because that's my situation. But either one you use is perfectly fine. So let me add that as a note here. So single or married brackets, I don't care. Right? So the standard deduction, right, is just the fixed amount. Itemizing your deduction says, hey, I'm going to go through and total all these things. So any, what is the 501c3 organization or nonprofit organizations, you can typically claim things that you gave to them, whether or not it's goods or money, as a deduction. So when you're itemizing, you're saying, hey, here's the value of all these different things that you, federal government, have told me I can deduct. One of the things we do often is we use a mortgage interest deduction. And this is one of the things the federal government does to incentivize home ownership. If you are paying a mortgage on a house, the interest that you pay on that mortgage is deductible. And they've recently been changing some of the rules around it, and they've changed some of the numbers and whatnot. But again, it's tax policy to incentivize certain behaviors. So if you want to itemize, so if they to itemize, allow them to enter deductions, deductions, and keep a running total. The total, or standard, is the total deductions. Let's capitalize that, right? Total deductions. Again, it's an oversimplification, I know. We're getting close-ish to real life here. And now we're going to calculate this thing called adjusted gross income. We'll say is equal to the gross income minus the total deductions. Again, a slight oversimplification, but for now, that's our purposes. So we're going to calculate adjusted gross income, right, which is equal to this. And now using adjusted gross income, I can't spell it here, sorry. There, adjusted gross income. Calculate taxes owed at each bracket. And here's the interesting piece here. The way tax brackets work is it's a progressive system. So the more money you make, the higher percentage you're paying in that bracket. But what happens here, and if you think about it, it's going to make a lot of sense here. If you make $10,000, right, you pay 10%, or let's use the individual bracket here. You pay 10% of every dollar up to this number. Just because you make enough money to be in the 12% bracket does not mean you pay 12% of the total, right? Because then you would have a very strong incentive to not go over this number and jump suddenly, or like from 24 to 32%, right? You'd have a strong incentive not to go a penny over that. So the taxes are owed in the bracket in which they're earned. So everybody, regardless of if you're Bill Gates, although he doesn't have employment income anymore, but if you're a millionaire, a billionaire, if you make money, right, regular income here, and it's not capital gains, which is a whole other story here. If you're making regular income and get a W-2, anybody and everybody pays 10% of their first $9,875, regardless of who you are and how much money you made. Everybody pays the same 10%. Now what happens is every dollar between this number and this number you pay 12% of. Yeah, 9874. Sure. If you're using the up to the dollar, greater than, less than, I don't care too much. And you're welcome to use integers for the income numbers, but taxes are likely to come up as floating points or doubles, right? Because it's not going to be very even. So you probably just use doubles across the board and you'll be good. So now, once you've made more than this amount of money, right, as you earn the money, it's taxed at that bracket. You pay 12% of every cent of every dollar up till $40,000 or $40,125, right? From here on up, you're paying 22% of every dollar up to $85,000. From there on up, right, between $85,000 and $163,000, you pay 32% of every dollar you make, and up and up and up. So even if you make enough money to be what we'll say at the 37% bracket, you only pay 37% taxes on money above and beyond this amount. Right? And that's the part that people kind of struggle with, and we don't, typically when you work for an employer, they'll take taxes out for you as an estimate, and they do all these calculations and they say, hey, by the end of the year, if you make this much money, this is what you need to owe total, and they'll just divide that up across all your paychecks. They don't say, oh, your very first paycheck, you made your first $1,000, let's just take 10% of it. Right? Because if you get 50 paychecks throughout the year, if you get paid every week, eventually you're going to be paying more than 10%. Right? And you'd be unhappy if throughout the year your paycheck got smaller and smaller because they took more and more taxes. Right? So they'll calculate the total. So that we're going to calculate taxes at each individual bracket. And I'll give you an example output. Again, don't worry too much about that. Again, if it looks exactly like mine, great. You're weird for copying me letter for letter. If it looks close to it, that's good. As long as you get the things we need to get. So that's at the each bracket here. And we want to say sure to display 0 if they owe 0 at that bracket. So we're going to show them each bracket. Hey, at the 10% bracket, you paid this much. At the 12% bracket, you paid this much. At the 22% bracket, you paid this much. At the 24% bracket, you paid this much. And I'll give you that sample output in just a little bit. I got to go run my program actually and get I have to update it with the new tax bracket numbers. So show them how much they owed, and then we're also going to display total taxes owed. So that's the sum of all the brackets, right? We're going to say taxes owed as a percentage of the adjusted gross income, that's AGI, and taxes owed as a percent of gross income. Okay, does that make sense? Right, so we'll take our total taxes, see what kind of percentage of the adjusted gross income that is. So it's never going to be exactly 37% of someone who makes $1 billion. Right? And someone who makes $1 billion is not getting payroll $1 billion anyway. They're going to get their money through other purposes, but whatever. Right? When we say the total tax burden percentage, right? Well, that's what we're calculating. So through all the brackets. But millionaires and people who make $500 a year still pay the same 10% on every dollar up through the first bracket because it's a progressive tax system. So that's what you're going to output for me. Right, so just keep looping. They can enter as many W-2s as they have. Just keep adding that income to total up gross income, right? That's the accumulator. Ask if they want the standard or the itemized. If they take the standard, just give them the standard, right? Which is $12,400 if you're single, $24,800 if you are married. Great. If they want to itemize, just keep on running, right? Keep that running total, another accumulator. We got total deductions. Now we have adjusted gross income is gross income minus total deductions. Again, an oversimplification, but it's enough for our purposes. And then we'll figure out taxes at each bracket using the adjusted gross income. Right? The idea with the deductions is we're not paying taxes on that money because we've been incentivized not to. And the standard deduction is sort of, they're just making the tax burden a little bit less on most people. It's taking it down another notch. So essentially you don't pay taxes on your first $12,000 worth of income, right? Because we're just letting people take that off, which is fine, right? And again, we sort of assume people might give to charities and whatnot and not want to itemize and all sorts of other reasons. It just makes life easier for the IRS too, I believe, because they don't have to check it, right? So then at each bracket, and I'll show you that sample output, or I'll upload it here to Desire to Learn a little bit later. Each bracket, how much they owe. So at the 10%, at the 12%, yada, 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 going on through. And then total taxes owed, total taxes as a percent of adjusted gross income, total taxes, or taxes owed as a percent of gross income. Does that make sense? I'll give you a rubric a little bit later. I got to finish that up tonight. I got to write the quiz for the chapter tonight. And we should be good to go with the project. I'm sorry, this took a little longer than I thought. So let me save that. Should be available for you guys now. The rubric TBD again, sorry. But let me put a link here in week 2 for you. So you should have all the tools you need using our expressions. Oh, I don't even have the week open. I'm sorry. I'll open it up and get all that stuff. The syllabus or the course template they gave me has all sorts of junk, and like they expect course discussions and using these discussion tools, and it's just not anything we want to do in a programming class. So not fond of discussions, at least for our types of classes. So any other questions? I know we went a little bit fast through some of the material, but again, I'm trying to pull out the interesting stuff, give you some highlights, some examples. You can go back. I'm expecting you to go back and read the book. That's why you have a book. Go through the slides, right? That's another way to get some of those highlights. Ignore all the file stuff for now. We can come back to that later when we get to our file IO chapter. Okay? All right. It's been fun. I'll hang out in Discord for a while after. If you guys have questions, want to do some screen shares, if you have trouble, let me know. You can send me screenshots, whatever. Happy to help while the rest of our course time runs out. And in the meantime, did you guys want to find some Twitch channel to raid for fun? Because like we can, I don't know if anybody's actually online anymore because it's getting late. There might not be anybody for us. Let me take a peek. See if I know anybody. Oh yeah, Science Streams is on. I think we did Science Streams last time, right? We popped in. I think he's a middle school science teacher. He was chatting about science stuff. Do you guys want to head over that way, or let's see? I don't know who else is around. Ooh, Gamer Anthro. There's a prof who teaches anthropology, but she's actually just playing games right now. So she has a gaming Twitch account and her school Twitch account. That's her gaming one. So maybe we can ignore that one. Was that for Science Streams E404? Or we could go find a chess channel if you guys want. Go watch some chess. Up to you guys. Or we could just not raid anybody. We don't need to. So. Alright. Yeah, might as well. If you want to, go for it. If not, no big deal. Oh yeah, chess? Okay, let's see. Who can we pick for chess? I don't actually know if I can raid them. Let's try it. Let's try Dojo Live. This is a group of IMs here. We'll see if it works. Yeah, looks like it's going to let us do it. So we'll go check out chess here just for fun. Again, totally optional. You don't need to stick around for it at all, but just part of the fun of Twitch and the ecosystem. It's been fun. You guys take care. See you on Discord.